Chapter 90. Zheng Tan couldn't see the color of the animal standing on the corpse under the night sky, but he could still see the patterns on its fur. Because Zheng Tan often sawed a pang in the courtyard, he was familiar with the patterns of dragonly cats. Although he could only see the back of the one in front of him, the patterns were indeed similar to those of Depang's. In addition to the stripes, there were also some faint spots. A cat? From the way it waved its claws and walked, it did look more like a cat. It was just that this cat was much bigger than the average cat. At first glance, it looked like a dog. Its fur was slightly longer and looked quite thick. However, its body proportions were closer to that of a cat. It stepped on the man's chest and looked at him quietly. Its big ears moved slightly, and the tip of its tail was swaying in an arc, as if it was confirming something. Under the white moonlight, this scene was very strange, but its movements felt somewhat slow. Poochie, another paw. The blood from the paw splashed on the ground, forming a long trail of blood. The man lying on the ground had no reaction to the paw. Zheng Tan and Yi Hao both shivered at the same time. That man was already dead, but this one added another paw. After waving its paw, it turned its head to look at Zheng Tan. Zheng Tan's heart almost jumped out of his throat. He now understood why so many people showed such a frightened expression when they saw his eyes at night. This feeling was really scary. Moreover, this one had just killed a person, not a mouse, not a grasshopper, but a real person. Even though Zheng Tan had seen cats and dogs killed, and people killed, the last thing that shocked him the most was a cat killing someone. Yes, this was a cat. Zheng Tan had already confirmed it when it turned its head to look at him. However, before Zheng Tan could relax, he saw Peanut Candy limping over, and it was quite fast, looking very happy. Zheng Tan, who was about to go up and stop it, stopped in his tracks. Logically speaking, Peanut Candy knew how to recognize threats under the guidance of Li Yuanba. From the previous incident, it could be seen that this guy actually knew how to protect himself. Now that he was so eager to get closer, Zheng Tan was a little confused, but his attention was still on Peanut Candy. He was a little nervous. Yi Hao covered his abdomen with one hand and leaned against the pile of construction waste. His other hand was hidden behind his back, holding a dagger. He was also frightened by the sudden appearance of this cat. He was ready to fight, but looking at the current situation, it seemed that something was wrong. No matter what, Yi Hao still decided to be careful. He had always felt that cats were temperamental animals. They could act coquettishly and stick to you one moment, but the next moment, they could scratch and bite you, not to mention that the cat in front of him had killed someone. Zheng Tan had been trying to drag Peanut Candy behind the pile of bricks, so he hadn't paid attention to how the cat had killed someone. However, Yi Hao had seen it. Whether it was the cat's jumping ability or reaction speed, it was quite amazing, and it was also very smart. Yi Hao was only guessing at the beginning because at that time, he had just hidden behind the pile of construction waste. The cat must have taken advantage of the time when the gunman was aiming at him and scratched his wrist. Although it didn't make the gunman drop the gun immediately, his hand was not enough to maintain the accuracy of the gun. Before the gunman could change his hand to hold the gun, the cat's second claw had already attacked, grabbing the man's neck from behind. When the man raised his hand to touch the back of his neck, it jumped up and clawed at the man's eyes again. Then, it clawed at the neck near the pulse. Finally, it clawed at the same spot on the neck again, and again, until the man stopped breathing. The grass on the ground had traces of the cat's sudden burst of strength when it moved. It was hard to imagine that a cat could do this. However, what kind of breed was this? He thought that the cat that Celestine had introduced was strange enough, but he didn't expect that there would be something even stranger than that. While Zheng Tan and Yi Hao were looking at Peanut Candy with different feelings, the cat with blood on its claws turned around and faced them. After seeing Peanut Candy, the murderous look in the cat's eyes faded a lot, and it raised its feet and walked towards Peanut Candy. After Peanut Candy went over, it tilted its head, squinted its eyes, and rubbed against the cat's body. It also made a meow sound, as if it was acting coquettishly. The cat also lowered its head and licked Peanut Candy's fur. Zheng Tan looked at the interaction between the two and suddenly remembered something. When Li Yuanba was pregnant, he had wondered what kind of cat would be able to take down the cat. Now, it seemed that it was the cat in front of him. When peanut candy stood next to the cat, it was obvious that it was much smaller. However, peanut candy could still grow. Even if it couldn't grow this big, it would definitely be bigger than the average cat. If his guess was correct, then the reason why peanut candy was bigger than the average cat from birth could be explained. Not only was it bigger than the average cat, but it was also strong and smart, and its fur was longer and thicker than the average short-haired domestic cat. Moreover, looking at peanut candy's appearance, it was obvious that it wasn't the first time it had seen it. This meant that they had met a long time ago, and it was very likely that they had met more than once. No wonder Li Yuanba always took peanut candy out for a walk. It was actually to find an opportunity to meet peanut candy's father, right? He just didn't know where the cat lived or where it was hiding. The cat's eyes were a bit like the eyes of a stray cat, but compared to those stray cats, it was a bit different. Zheng Tan carefully observed the big cat. Because the fur on its body was slightly longer, she could tell that it didn't look like it was groomed often. If it washed often, its fur would be smoother. Even if the cat licked its own fur, it was still different from washing thoroughly. Besides, how many people would dare to raise a cat with such a personality? In fact, if it hadn't killed people just now, the cat would have given people a good impression. At least it didn't look as fierce as Li Yuanba. Just a bit serious, especially after the coldness in its eyes disappeared. If its body size was reduced by half, people would only think of it as a special forest cat. This cat was very alert. When it was licking peanut candy's fur, its ears were always paying attention to the movements around it. When Yi Hao's phone vibrated, it glanced at Yi Hao, but didn't do anything else. "Hello." Yi Hao answered the phone. The call was from Leopard. Leopard and the others would arrive soon. Now, they just wanted to confirm Yi Hao's location and understand the situation. Zheng Tan noticed that when Yi Hao was on the phone, the cat glanced at Yi Hao a few times. It seemed to be a bit meaningful. But Zheng Tan was sure that this cat wasn't in the same situation as him. This was a real cat. The compatibility between the body and the soul was unquestionable. It might be a bit special, but it definitely didn't have a human soul like him. Zheng Tan was curious about what the cat was thinking. Not long after Yi Hao hung up the phone, Leopard and the others arrived. There were 3 cars parked outside, and people came in through the collapsed wall. Leopard looked at the dead man on the ground and saw the strangeness of the wound. He looked at Yi Hao with some surprise. Yi Hao didn't explain. "Deal with these first. There are 2 more inside." Leopard wasn't a person who liked to ask too many questions. He directed a few people to deal with the bodies inside the building. Seeing that people had come, the cat stayed by peanut candy's side. The father and son stayed at the side and didn't leave. Their eyes were full of vigilance against Leopard and the others. Zheng Tan jumped onto the pile of bricks and watched the people working under Yi Hao's command. A doctor-like person who came with them first treated Yi Hao's wound urgently and asked Yi Hao to go to the car. It wasn't convenient to deal with it here. Yi Hao nodded but didn't leave immediately. Instead, he looked at peanut candy. When he turned around, he saw that peanut candy was being held by its father and was walking over. Zheng Tan remembered hearing that if a kitten was held in its mouth like this, it would be fine. But if it was held in its mouth like this when it grew up, it might be more uncomfortable and might violently resist. But seeing peanut candy still being obedient, Zheng Tan thought that they were indeed father and son. The cat held peanut candy in its mouth in front of Yi Hao. Then it looked at Yi Hao and then at the doctor. Yi Hao and the cat looked at each other for a few seconds. Then he said to the doctor, "Take a look at this kitten while you're at it." Doctor. F***CK, I'm a doctor, not a veterinarian. Since Yi Hao had spoken, the doctor could only bite the bullet and do it. Yi Hao didn't say anything. Seeing that Yi Hao was leaving, the cat followed him with peanut candy in its mouth. Yi Hao got into a modified MPV. Just as he got into the car, the cat followed him with peanut candy in its mouth. It even occupied a seat. Yi Hao was speechless. After thinking for a while, Yi Hao leaned out and said to Zheng Tan, "Black charcoal, let's go together." Zheng Tan pulled his ear. He knew that Yi Hao was actually quite afraid of the big cat. He felt that it would be safer if he was there. The peanut candy was the link between them. Yi Hao knew that Zheng Tan was with peanut candy. That was why he asked Zheng Tan to come along. At the same time, he also called Celestine. Originally, he didn't want Celestine to get involved. But since it involved a cat, he had no choice but to ask for Celestine's help. Zheng Tan was also a little curious. He could tell that the big cat was just vigilant. It didn't have the murderous aura it had before. He followed it to satisfy his curiosity. But later, he would have to trouble Celestine to call the Jiao family. Celestine left quickly. The abandoned building was cleaned up quickly. It didn't look like a murder case had taken place. In the car, Peanut Candy was lying next to the big cat. The air conditioning in the car might have made it uncomfortable, so it shrank closer to the big cat. After the big cat licked Peanut Candy's fur, it kept staring at Yi Hao. It seemed to be sizing him up. Yi Hao, who was being treated by the doctor, felt a little creeped out by the stare. There was no murderous aura or obvious malice, but it made him feel even more strange. Chapter 91. This time, Yi Hao didn't go to the night building. Instead, he went to the quiet villa that Zheng Tan went to last time. Celestine was already waiting inside. He wasn't in a hurry. He already knew about Yi Hao's injury, so there was nothing to worry about. The only thing he wasn't sure about was how he would be scolded when he called the Jiao family later. Seeing Yi Hao and the others come in, Celestine first looked behind Yi Hao. In addition to the black cat, there was also a big cat. Just now on the phone, Yi Hao just casually said that there was a big cat. Celestine didn't take it to heart. He thought that in such a big city, except for the zoo, there wouldn't be a big cat like that. It didn't refer to tigers or cheetahs, but lynxes and caribou. Therefore, Celestine, who wasn't mentally prepared at all, looked like he had shit on his face when he saw the big cat. Every time he saw this kind of big cat, Celestine's heart would be very uncomfortable. He would always think of the unbearable past. Yi Hao knew a little about Celestine, so he deliberately said it vaguely on the phone. Now that he saw Celestine's expression, he smiled, which was rare. "What are you smiling about?" Celestine raised his foot to kick, but Yi Hao dodged. "What's the matter?" Celestine didn't kick again, but sat back on the sofa and asked. When he asked, he looked at the black cat that was digging for food in the fruit bowl. Zheng Tan didn't pay attention to them. Anyway, he was just here to watch the show. He didn't want to get involved. He just wanted to see what the big cat was planning. Yi Hao's injury was treated, and it wasn't a big problem. When it was the Peanut Candy's turn, the doctor was very nervous. After all, he wasn't a veterinarian. But after finding out the reason, he calmed down. Perhaps when the candy peanut was stuck between the wooden planks, it was pierced by the thin wood chips on the edges of the wooden planks. Although it didn't bleed much, it felt pain with every step it took, so licking it was useless. The doctor had originally planned to use some forcibly fix things, but when he found that the peanut candy was quite cooperative, he took the tools and began to remove the thorns. Once he pulled it out, peanut candy would meow. It seemed to be in great pain. There were a few times when it reflexively turned over and almost bit the doctor directly. He had only pulled out half of the thorn, and it was already like this. Would he be bitten or scratched by a cat when he pulled out the rest? Just as the doctor was hesitating, Zheng Tan saw Peanut Candy's father walk over, raise his foot, and press Peanut Candy down. Then he looked at the doctor, indicating for the doctor to continue. Zheng Tan. Suddenly, he felt that Peanut Candy was very miserable. Not only did she have a strict mother, but she also had such a father. Peanut Candy, who was pressed down by force, cried out in pain. It even struggled a few times but couldn't break free from its father's claws. Celestine and Yi Hao's expressions changed as they watched from the side. When they finally finished removing the thorns on Peanut Candy's leg and applied the ointment, the doctor's forehead was covered in a layer of sweat. It wasn't because he was hot, but because he was nervous. The big cat next to him was too strange, and it made him want to run away as soon as possible. Celestine called the Jiao family and told them that the cat wouldn't be coming back tonight. The Jiaoma wanted to hear Zheng Tan's voice to confirm that the cat was safe, so Zheng Tan held into the phone. The big cat, who was licking Peanut Candy's fur, was startled by Zheng Tan's howl and jumped up. It looked at Zheng Tan vigilantly for a while, then returned to its original position and squatted down. After dealing with the Jiao family, Celestine and Yi Hao didn't know where to start with Peanut Candy. They didn't know who it belonged to, and it would take time to find out. Didn't you ask the Jiao family just now? Yi Hao asked. No, I was just thinking about how to avoid being scolded. I couldn't wait to hang up the phone after I finished talking, Celestine said helplessly. After thinking for a while, Celestine put the phone in front of Zheng Tan and pointed at Peanut Candy, who was rubbing against the big cat. You take care of that cat? Zheng Tan understood what Celestine meant. Ever since Celestine knew that he could make phone calls, he often asked Zheng Tan to help him make phone calls when he was driving. But now, Zheng Tan didn't immediately dial the number. Instead, he raised his head and looked around. Only Yi Hao and Celestine were in the living room. The doctor had just left, Leopard seemed to have been sent on a mission, and Ran Qi was said to be injured and was in the hospital. There were a few people in the small rooms outside the living room, but they didn't come in without Yi Hao's permission. Since they were all familiar with each other, Zheng Tan didn't have too many scruples. He took the phone, dialed the number, and pushed it to Celestine. Yi Hao, who was sitting next to him, twitched his face. He suddenly wanted to find something to ward off evil spirits like Ran Qi. This was 2F** King Weird. Other than Yi Hao, the big cat had seen everything that happened between Celestine and Zheng Tan. It tilted its head and seemed to be thinking about something. Zheng Tan had dialed the number of Xiaoguo's studio. Usually, Xiaoguo would be there, and today was the same. When the call went through, Celestine got Peanut Candy's name from Xiaoguo. He only said that Peanut Candy was injured and that he had brought her over. He would send her back the next day. He didn't say anything else. Knowing that Zheng Tan was also there, Xiaoguo felt a lot more relieved. He thanked Celestine again. After solving the problem with Peanut Candy, Celestine and Yi Hao looked at the big cat at the same time. The big cat looked at the two of them, yawned, and lay down next to Peanut Candy, preparing to sleep. Celestine and Yi Hao were speechless. It fell asleep just like that? When Celestine called Xiaoguo, he didn't hear Xiaoguo say that there were other cats. He turned around and asked Zheng Tan, who was eating a piece of pork jerky, "Do you know that cat?" Zheng Tan thought about it, shook his head, and continued to eat the pork jerky. Although he knew Peanut Candy and Li Yuanba, and guessed that this was Peanut Candy's father, he didn't know it. He hadn't even heard of it. If there was such a cat around, Zheng Tan would definitely be warned by the Jiaopa. The aunties in the courtyard, who were always well informed, would definitely have mentioned it. This big cat probably came to visit its wife and child every once in a while. It usually hid in a place that was deserted and suitable for its survival. As for where this cat usually hid, Zheng Tan recalled the map that he had seen. Chuhua City Botanical Garden and a park with mountains were not far from Chuhua University. Actually, there was a small road from the pet center to Chuhua University that passed by the abandoned project. However, there was a construction site in the middle of the road. Plus, the small street was very safe, so Zheng Tan didn't go there. So, the only possibility was that this cat had secretly gone to the pet center to see its wife. When it was on its way back, it happened to see someone trying to kill Yi Hao, and Yi Hao was holding Peanut Candy in his arms. That was why it attacked? No matter what Zheng Tan guessed, the big cat was already here, and it didn't seem to want to avoid people. Thinking of something, Zheng Tan stopped eating the pork jerky. He looked at the father and son lying there, and then looked at Yi Hao, who was discussing things with Celestine. He narrowed his eyes. Could it be that this big cat wanted to stay? Thinking about the big cat's style, and then thinking about Yi Hao's identity, which was already clean, but still couldn't escape from some shady business. Celestine, who was discussing things with Yi Hao, wanted to drink some water, but when he picked up the cup, he inadvertently looked at Zheng Tan. He saw that the black cat was holding a piece of pork jerky that had already been opened. It maintained its eating posture, squinted its eyes, and seemed to be thinking about something. "Black charcoal, what are you thinking about?" Celestine asked. He knew that the cat couldn't speak, so he wanted to call its attention back. The cat's behavior just now was too strange. If they hadn't known each other for so long, Celestine would have been scared like Ran Qi. Zheng Tan stopped thinking about it, looked at Celestine, and then looked at Yi Hao. He lowered his head and continued eating the pork jerky. What was he thinking about? In fact, he was thinking that if this big cat really wanted to stay, because it had saved Yi Hao wouldn't refuse. Yi Hao was a very loyal person, and he shouldn't be too bad to the cat. Thinking about that scene, he was happy to see it. Why do I feel that the black cat is waiting to see me make a fool of myself? Yi Hao frowned. You're thinking too much. Celestine could only comfort him like this. The next morning, Zheng Tan squatted on the chair next to Yi Hao and ate the Xianxia soup. The people here liked to make Xianxia soup with pork liver, kidney and lean meat. Zheng Tan had always liked it, and Jiao Ma often made it. He didn't expect to eat it here. In front of the father and son, there was a big bowl. No, in front of the big cat was a bowl. There was Xianxia soup and rice in it. Yi Hao had never raised a cat before, so he didn't know what to feed it. Seeing that Zheng Tan was eating, he directly fed them the same thing. The good thing was that the father and son were not picky. Originally, the father and son's bowls were placed on the ground. Seeing Zheng Tan squatting on the chair, the big cat couldn't stand it. It jumped onto a chair and stared at Yi Hao. Yi Hao wanted to pretend that he didn't know anything, but the big cat started to howl. With Zheng Tan in front, even if it howled very loudly, it sounded more like a cat, unlike Zheng Tan's ghostly howl. Even so, it was really unbearable. Yi Hao gestured to the servant who made breakfast, "Bring the bowl up." The big cat was originally bigger than Zheng Tan, so the bowl was also big. One chair couldn't fit it, so the servant brought another one. She also put the peanut bowl on the chair. Looking at this situation, Yi Hao thought to himself, "Get out of here after you finish eating." While eating, there was a sound at the door. Hearing the sound at the door, Celestine, who was drinking soup, choked. He looked at Yi Hao and whispered, "Your wife brought the children here." Yi Hao originally wanted to reply, "What's so surprising about that?" Suddenly he realized that there were 3 cats here. What did he say when his wife said that she wanted to raise a cat? Yi Hao didn't remember what he said specifically. He only remembered that it meant that he hated cats. Until now, his wife had never raised a cat. But the situation now, while thinking, Zheng Tan saw a tall beauty walk in with a boy who was about the same age as Jiao Yuan. Tang Shui heard that Yi Hao was attacked last night, so she rushed over with the child early in the morning to check on Yi Hao's condition. Although she knew that Yi Hao wasn't seriously injured when she called him last night, she still felt more at ease. As soon as she walked in, Tang Shui saw the 3 cats sitting on the 3 chairs at the dining table. She was about to ask Yi Hao about his condition, but the words were stuck in her throat. She was in disbelief. Next to Tang Shui, the little boy who was originally expressionless saw the 3 cats at the dining table, and his eyes lit up. It was completely different from the wooden expression he had when he saw his father. Chapter 92. Zheng Tan felt that the atmosphere was a little awkward. He looked at Celestine and saw that he didn't want to talk to them. He lowered his head and continued eating, but his ears perked up to listen to the sounds around them. After a long silence, Tang Shui finally said, "What's the situation here?" Yi Hao put down his bowl and wiped his mouth. He pointed at Zheng Tan and said, "This one was brought by Celestine." Then he pointed at the peanut candy. "This one was from a pet shop. It's with the one that Celestine brought. They'll be sent back later." Finally, Yi Hao pointed at the big cat. "This one was picked up on the road. Its origin is unknown." Tang Shui didn't know how much she understood. She nodded and looked at the big cat. "This cat doesn't look like an ordinary cat. It's big enough. Is it a super cat?" Super cat? Yi Hao and Celestine looked at Tang Shui at the same time. Their eyes were full of doubts. Zheng Tan stopped eating and listened to Tang Shui's next words. This was the first time he heard this word. "You know that Uncle 19 has a big cat, right?" Tang Shui looked at Yi Hao. Yi Hao thought for a moment. "I haven't seen Uncle 19 for a long time. But when I went to Master 7's place, he mentioned him a little." The Master 7 that Yi Hao mentioned was Tang Shui's father, Yi Hao's father-in-law. When Yi Hao first came to Chuhua, he followed Master Tang the 7th. Although Master Tang the 7th helped him a lot, Yi Hao mostly relied on himself. Otherwise, Tang Shui wouldn't have liked Yi Hao. Although they were now son-in-law and father-in-law, Yi Hao was still used to calling him Master 7. As for that 19th uncle, he was also someone from the same era as Master Tang the 7th. Although he was currently in retirement, he still had some influence. His relationship with Master Tang the 7th was neither good nor bad. However, there were not many people from that era left today. The two old men would sometimes have a heart-to-heart talk. When Yi Hao went to visit Master 7 last week, he heard Master 7 mention it. He didn't think too much about it. In Yi Hao's mind, the so-called big cat was just a slightly bigger pet cat. It was like a forest cat, but it wasn't that big. In a big city like China, who would raise such a big cat? But now, it seemed that it wasn't that simple. Uncle 19 asked a friend of his abroad to help him get a descendant of a super cat. The so-called super cat is a hybrid between a domestic cat and a bigger wild cat from Africa or South America. It's just that it's not easy to get a first-generation super cat. The management there is strict, so they won't give it to you. Uncle 19's friend got the descendant of the first-generation super cat. I heard that the second-generation super cat might not be as big as the first generation, but it's still much bigger than the average pet cat. Now, Uncle 19's big cat is already more than 20 pounds, almost 15 pounds. It's very strong and will continue to grow. It looks smaller than this one, but Uncle 19's cat only has short hair. The one you have has long hair. Zheng Tan listened to Tang Xue's story, then looked at Peanut Candy's father, who was squatting on the chair with a serious expression. Super cat? Yi Hao frowned. His focus was not on the long hair, short hair, or the size of the cat that Tang Xue mentioned. Does Uncle 19's cat kill other small animals? Yi Hao originally wanted to ask if the cat killed people, but he changed his mind. Why not? I heard that a few pet cats around were killed, and a small dog was also killed. Every time Uncle 19 brought the cat over, it would stare at Dad's two gray parrots. Dad said that the two parrots started to pluck their feathers because of the pressure. Zheng Tan was speechless. It wasn't easy to be a bird. Not every bird could be like that stupid bird, General, who was always looking for fun. While they were talking, the big cat had finished the food in the bowl and was licking its paws. Zheng Tan always thought that cats might be careless when eating, but they were very serious when licking their fur and paws. Even licking their balls was more serious than eating. Yiheng, back off! Yi Hao shouted. Tang Xue didn't notice that her son had moved closer to the cat when she was explaining. She didn't realize that her son was a few meters away from her until Yi Hao shouted. Cats were always very alert to strangers, and could even be aggressive. Tang Xue knew this very well, but she usually let her son play by himself when she came here, so she ignored the big cat just now. When Yi Hao shouted, Yiheng was only a few steps away from the big cat, and he didn't stop after hearing Yi Hao's shout. Instead, he sped up and approached the cat. Not only Yi Hao, but also Celestine's face was a little pale. They were too careless. They regretted not locking the big cat in a cage or tying it up with a chain. That way, they wouldn't have to be so worried. Yi Hao didn't dare to move. He held a table knife in his hand under the table and signaled Celestine with his eyes. If the big cat showed any signs of aggression, he should immediately attack. Yi Hao, Celestine, and the big cat were all at the same table. It was too late to stop Yiheng now. Tang Xue also realized that something was wrong with Yi Hao and Celestine's reactions. Yiheng didn't care about his parents' reminders. He came to the big cat and looked at it. The big cat, who was licking its paws seriously, didn't have any special reaction when it sensed someone approaching. It looked up at Yiheng, then squinted its eyes, tilted its head, and rubbed against the child. Not to mention the so-called super cat's genes and body size, Yi Hao didn't want to see such a cat near his son after seeing it kill people. It was too dangerous. Even Yi Hao didn't have a 100% chance of winning against this cat alone. Its claws were big, its body was strong, and its reaction speed and IQ were still unknown. Yi Hao was afraid of it. Being scratched by its claws was no joke. Zheng Tan was closer to the big cat, so he didn't feel the big cat's evil intentions. It wasn't like the chilling premonition he had before he killed people last night. The big cat now was really like those pet cats that love to act coquettishly. It had the laziness after eating and drinking. Celestine saw Zheng Tan's calmness, so he didn't immediately attack. He didn't know the big cat's personality and temper. If he suddenly attacked, it might anger the big cat. So, without being 100% sure that it was safe, Celestine chose to be conservative and observe the situation first. If a cat tried its best to act coquettishly, it could be very lethal. People who didn't hate cats couldn't resist it. Yi Hao's son was one such person. Seeing the big cat rubbing against him, Yi Heng reached out his hand and touched the big cat's head. His fingers slid over the big sharp ears, then to the big cat's jaw and neck. He scratched it. He heard from Uncle 19 that cats like to be scratched like this. The big cat raised its chin and looked quite comfortable being scratched. It squinted its eyes. However, it didn't last long. Yi Heng was dragged away by his collar by his father. Yi Heng, who had just smiled at the cat, immediately put on a face that was very similar to Yi Hao's. The father and son stared at each other. Okay. Celestine went over and pulled Yi Hao. They had to deal with the big cat first. Just then Leopard came back. Yi Hao asked him to look up information about this big cat last night, and Leopard was lucky. He remembered the cat extermination incident around Tsinghua University a few years ago. At that time, Leopard was still young and curious. He happened to be drinking with people around Tsinghua University, so he knew about it. He tried his luck and looked into it. He really did find something. Yi Hao gestured for Tang Shui to take Yi Heng to the room upstairs, and then took the information that Leopard had sorted out. CFH incident? Yi Hao frowned and whispered a sentence, "This is from hell." Zheng Tan felt that the three letters, CFH, sounded familiar. He thought for a while and remembered that Jiao Pa had mentioned this before. Seeing Yi Hao sit on the sofa and look at the information, Zheng Tan ran over and jumped on the sofa. He stood on the back of the sofa and looked at the document. Yi Hao just glanced at Zheng Tan and didn't have any intention of chasing him away. He didn't think that a cat could understand this. He was probably just curious. The information wasn't detailed. First, it was too short, so they didn't find much. Second, the incident that year was suppressed by the higher-ups, so it was difficult to find anything specific. They only knew that the cats with the code name CFH were very fierce. They might have many different lineages, such as the smaller wild dragonly, the forest cat, the bigger serval, and the feral cat. Every CFH test breed had a big difference. Some had long hair, some had short hair, some had tails, and some had no tails. The patterns on their bodies were also different. They were very resistant to cold and hunger. Unfortunately, one of the cats had an unstable temperament, and the other had congenital diseases or premature aging. Originally, the researchers wanted to see how the second generation of CFH would fare, but the accident happened. Not only did they lose people, but the higher-ups also killed all the CFH test subjects when the incident was suppressed. However, some of the lab cats still escaped during the chaos. For the next 2 years, people had been looking for the escaped cats, afraid that a second generation of CFH would appear. In the end, they only found a few corpses that died of diseases and nothing else, so the higher-ups stopped the cleanup operation. The big cat in front of them could be the second generation of CFH from an ordinary cat that escaped. Of course, it could also be the new pet, super cat, that Tang Shui mentioned. However, Zheng Tan and Yi Hao were more inclined to believe that it was the former. After all, a cat that could easily kill an adult was worthy of the code name CFH. Why do you think those people are researching this? Celestine didn't understand. Who knows? Yi Hao threw the information on the coffee table and said, "I heard that some scientists in Country M have also created pigs with human blood, mice with human brain cells, and so on, so..." The leopard shrugged. What he meant was that if these weirdos existed, then the existence of the one in front of him wasn't strange at all. Zheng Tan shivered and suddenly felt grateful that Jiao Pa wasn't one of those weird scientists. According to the time of the incident, it has been almost 10 years. Yi Hao sighed. "So you can just take this cat out and say that it's a super cat." Celestine joked. "Anyway, it's been so long and not many people remember it. As long as they don't see it kill people, who can be sure that it's not a new super cat?" Yi Hao shook his head. "I don't care about that. It's been almost 10 years, but when this big cat kills people, it still jumps very fast. Its reaction is very agile, and it looks very strong. It doesn't look old at all. It doesn't have premature aging, and it doesn't have any diseases. No one knows how long it can live." Zheng Tan looked at the big cat that was yawning and showing its fangs, and then looked at Peanut Candy who was licking its fur. "So, Peanut candy was actually the third generation of CFH? But the mole next to peanut candy's mouth really ruined this domineering name. In the future, the bloodline of CFH would be diluted by natural reproduction. Who knew how many cats similar to peanut candy would appear in this world and live with people? However, their appearance would be no different from ordinary cats. In the big city where cats and dogs were everywhere, who would associate it with this CFH incident? Even if they saw a very fierce cat, no one would think much of it. Chapter 93. After breakfast, Celestine sent Jing Tan and the peanut candy back. As for the big cat, it just lay on the sofa and didn't move. Yi Hao even threatened it, but it just yawned and ignored him. Except for not letting him use a leash, it was quite obedient. Yi Hao had made up his mind to get rid of the big cat, but Yi Hao asked for it. After so long, it was the first time that Yi Hao heard his son make a request. Although the father and son always glared at each other, Yi Hao still spoiled his son. It was rare for his son to ask, so Yi Hao reluctantly agreed. Of course, it was only temporary, and they still had to observe for a while. Moreover, during this period of observation, Yi Hao set a rule for his son that he couldn't be alone with the big cat. If he wanted to touch the big cat, there had to be at least 3 people present, and they couldn't be too close to it. No, in short, a series of no's made Yi Hao very impatient. He asked his mother Tang Xue for help, but this time Tang Xue didn't help him. She stood on Yi Hao's side. Ever since she knew that the big cat killed people, Tang Xue was actually very opposed to keeping the big cat. Under Yi Heng's strong request, she temporarily agreed. She also decided to send more people around to watch, so that there wouldn't be any accidents. Were all cats shameless? Anyway, after this incident, Yi Hao had the impression that the big cat was temperamental, neurotic, stubborn, and shameless. The big cat stayed in Yi Hao's villa, which made Yi Heng, who usually lived with Mr. Qi, come a lot more often. Even Mr. Qi came to see it after he heard about it. Mr. Qi thought highly of the big cat. Knowing that the cat could kill people, Mr. Qi slapped the table and said, "Good." This made Yi Hao very speechless. Mr. Qi thought that when the big cat was familiar with the environment and the people around it, he would let it compete with 19th Super Cat. It would be best if it could make the big cat lose its spirit. After all, it forced his 2 gray parrots to pluck their feathers. The big cat successfully stayed in Yi Hao's villa. When Ran Qi was discharged from the hospital and came here, he saw the big cat lying on the sofa in the living room. He felt uncomfortable. At first glance, he thought he had a dog, but it turned out to be a big cat, and a very special one at that. No matter what happened to the big cat, Zheng Tan stayed at home these days. The continuous hot and sunny weather was a bit unbearable. Jiao Pa and Jiao Ma also stayed at home and didn't go out much. The outside was like a steamer, and even an egg could be cooked on the asphalt road. Even Jiao Yuan was a bit tired these days, watching TV listlessly at home. Little Pomelo was doing her daily summer homework. Jiao Yuan and Jiao Ma sat on the sofa in the living room and watched TV. Zheng Tan was lying on one side of the sofa, not interested in TV. He yawned, turned over, and kicked a newspaper. Since he had nothing to do, Zheng Tan rolled over and read the news on the newspaper. The Chuqing News was a newspaper that many families in Chuhua subscribed to. The outdated newspapers were put on the table for soup or thrown on the floor as table legs, and the rest were kept for sale. Jiao Yuan and Jiao Ma were so engrossed in watching TV that they didn't notice Zheng Tan's movements. After Zheng Tan read the entertainment news, he raised his paw and flipped to a page. There was an entire page of news about a deputy mayor of Chuhua who was interrogated. Looking at the time of the interrogation, it happened to be the day Zheng Tan came back from Yi Hao's villa. Did this have anything to do with Yi Hao? Who cares? Zheng Tan rolled over and changed his position again. He kicked the newspaper off the sofa. The smell of the newspaper was too pungent, and it was uncomfortable. While he was in a daze, he heard someone knocking on the door. Zheng Tan was too lazy to open his eyes and continued to lie on the sofa. Then he was thrown up by Jiao Yuan. *CK. Zheng Tan was so scared that he woke up. When he fell from the air, he didn't care about Jiao Yuan's hand that caught him. He stepped on Jiao Yuan's arm to jump off the ground and ran into little Pomelo's room. Little brats were indeed unreliable. After lying in little Pomelo's room for a while, Zheng Tan finally understood why Jiao Yuan was so excited. The person who came was Sahara's owner, Ruan Ying. Ruan Ying had received some swimming tickets for a newly built beach swimming pool that had just been completed. Chuhua City was located inland, and the newly built beach swimming pool had attracted many people. However, the swimming pool wasn't fully open to the public yet. The tickets were only given to a few people through certain channels and would only be officially opened in 5 days. When it was officially opened, there would definitely be a lot of people. When the time came, there would be many people and there wouldn't be much space for activities. Even so, many people were looking forward to it through the advertisements. Originally, Jiao Pa wanted to wait for the official opening to bring the children to play. He didn't expect Ruan Ying to directly send the tickets over. Ruan Ying distributed the tickets to the families in the courtyard. Other than the Jiao family, there were also Lan Tianzhu, Su and Litmus, and a few other families. As for Xiong, he was taken away by his mother and wasn't in the courtyard. After Jiao Yuan was happy, he was about to run to his room to call Xiong. However, Xiong directly called him. Before Ruan Ying came over, she had already gone to Su An's house. Just now, Su An had called Xiong. After Xiong found out about the courtyard's arrangements, he argued with his mother and finally got his mother to agree to go there tomorrow. Xiong's mother was able to get the tickets herself, so she didn't ask Ruan Ying for help. The children also agreed to meet at the beach swimming pool tomorrow. According to Ruan Ying, they would leave early tomorrow before the sun came out. There was a restaurant at the beach swimming pool, so they could have lunch there. At night, they would find a place to have dinner. However, not long after, Jiao Pa received a call. It was from Xiong's mother. Xiong's mother was a good person, but she was a bit domineering. Perhaps all career women were like that. She was from the Education Bureau. No one knew what position she held, but it shouldn't be a low position. She was usually busy, and Xiong's father didn't have much energy to take care of the children. Both of them didn't have the time. Otherwise, they wouldn't have left Xiong to their grandparents who lived in the courtyard. According to Xiong's mother, Xiong was taken care of by everyone in the courtyard. Therefore, the two of them would treat everyone to a meal tomorrow night to express their gratitude. Jiao Pa couldn't refuse. Xiong's mother had already decided. She had even booked a restaurant and informed the other families, so it was decided. Ignoring Xiong's mother's domineering tone, tomorrow's arrangements were not bad. Jiao Pa couldn't let the children down. After dinner, he went to Yuan Zi's place to borrow a car. After refueling, he drove back to the courtyard to wait for tomorrow. At night, Jiao Yuan was too excited and slept very late. Little Pomelo was the same. After all, she was a child. Naturally, she would be happy to have something to play with. Zheng Tan didn't mind. He wasn't afraid of water. Even if he went for a swim, it wouldn't matter. As long as Jiao Yuan and the others didn't pee in the water, it would be fine. The next morning, the two children woke up without the alarm. After breakfast, they gathered downstairs at around 7 o'clock. Each family drove a car. Ruan Ying's car was his and Sahara's. Sahara rested its chin on the car window and looked out. It would bark from time to time. "Hey, you're bringing a cat? Don't you need a leash?" Ruan Ying saw the Jiao family bringing a cat and asked. "No need. My cat is very obedient." Jiao Ma smiled. Ruan Ying looked at the black cat that followed the Jiao family's children into the car. Then he looked at Sahara, who was still tied up in the car. He shook his head. This was the F*** difference. They didn't need to bring a swimming ring. Yesterday, Ruan Ying had told them that there were swimming rings and some other tools. They just needed to bring someone over. If they really wanted to bring someone, they could buy some snacks to satisfy their cravings. However, it was summer. Everyone only wanted to eat some watermelon and drink some cold drinks. Zheng Tan looked around. He didn't see anyone carrying bags. Sahara, who was barking at Zheng Tan, was pulled by the ear into the car by Ruan Ying. The car windows were closed. They had to turn on the air conditioner in the car. Otherwise, it would be too hot and dehydrated. They still had to drive to the beach swimming pool. Therefore, the Jiao Yuan and little Pomelo who slept late at night slept for a while in the car. Zheng Tan leaned against the back of the car seat and looked at the scenery from the back window. There were many people going out in the morning. There were a few traffic jams at the crossroads. While waiting for the traffic light to turn green, Zheng Tan saw a man on a motorcycle behind him. He was half naked and had a wet cloth on his head. There were 2 watermelons hanging on the motorcycle. He was using the wet cloth on his head to wipe his sweat while waiting for the traffic light to turn green. When the light turned yellow, he threw the wet cloth on his head over his shoulder. People who went out in the summer couldn't afford to get hurt. The beach swimming pool that Ruan Ying mentioned was a type of water entertainment project built by the river. Large amounts of sand were deposited there by the river to form a beach. The water from the river was used to form a natural swimming pool about 100 meters away from the shore. The swimming pool was designed with deep water, shallow water, a children's playground, a viewing pavilion, and other entertainment projects. In addition, there was a service area consisting of a parking lot, a cultural and entertainment tea house, changing rooms, and other facilities. There was also a small platform close to the water, a green landscape square, and other facilities for leisure. When Zheng Tan and the rest arrived, there were already people waiting in the parking lot of the swimming pool. There were also many cars parked in the surrounding parking lots. It seemed that many people had arrived earlier than them. The people waiting here were very familiar with Ruan Ying. They introduced the layout of the swimming pool and some important areas. If it weren't for the adults holding them back, the children would have run out long ago. Although there were people around the swimming pool to prevent accidents from happening, the adults were still worried. They had to keep an eye on the swimming pool themselves. Besides, it was usually after 4 o'clock in the afternoon or 7 o'clock in the evening when the sun was so strong that a layer of skin would be burnt off. There weren't many people fighting for seats before it was officially opened. There was no rush. Now, everyone wanted to familiarize themselves with the place. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to find the bathroom, changing room, or restroom. Xiong and his family of 3 were already waiting at the tea house. His mother had brought some good tea leaves over. However, when she saw Zheng Tan in the bag that the Jiaoma was carrying, his mother's expression didn't look too good. She probably felt that bringing a cat into this kind of place was a bit embarrassing. Moreover, it was a common cat with no special features. Chapter 94. The air conditioner in the tea house was turned on. Everyone came in groups, so it looked like they were sitting in groups. If they waited until the bathhouse officially opened, such a situation would definitely not happen. They would probably even have to wait in line to get a seat. Jiao Yuan and the other boys sat for a while before going to the entertainment area to play billiards. Ruan Ying and the rest brought them along. Ruan Ying had 2 reasons for going out with the children. Firstly, she didn't want to stay here and listen to these parents talk about politics, education, and how to teach their children. Secondly, Sahara wouldn't stay here obediently, so she brought Sahara and the children over to play billiards. Little Pomelo and Litmus were bored sitting here. After Jiao Yuan and the rest left, the parents turned their attention to them. Thus, little Pomelo brought Zheng Tan and Litmus to the entertainment area. After leaving the tea house, Zheng Tan jumped out of his bag. With his current weight, little Pomelo had a hard time carrying him. There were a few people with dogs around, but they were all tied up with leashes. When they saw Zheng Tan, a few dogs even barked at him. Zheng Tan ignored them and walked towards the entertainment area while looking at the layout of the surroundings. Some people were curious to see that there were people with cats. Generally speaking, cats were not easy to discipline, and this black cat was not tied up. In the billiards room in the entertainment area, Ruan Ying was teaching the children how to play billiards. Sahara was tied up and lying on the ground chewing on its paws. When it saw Zheng Tan, it immediately stood up and barked at Zheng Tan. Zheng Tan did not know what it wanted to say, so he just let it bark. Ruan Ying could not stand it anymore. His words were drowned out by the barking, and the children beside him could not hear what he was saying. Putting down the cue stick, Ruan Ying walked to a corner and threw a plastic duck to it. Sahara sniffed it twice, ignored it, and continued barking. What else do you want after eating and peeing? It's not time to pee yet. If you bark again, I'll throw you out. You can't even compare to a cat. Ruan Ying pointed at Sahara and scolded. Zheng Tan. After being scolded, Sahara stopped barking. Instead, it squatted there and hummed like a whistle. When Zheng Tan saw this, he thought that this guy was probably bored out of his wits and did not want to play with the plastic duck. He looked around and saw an inflatable ball near the door. He raised his hand and threw the ball towards the Sahara. Sahara immediately wagged its big tail, full of energy. Sure enough, he was bored. After playing basketball with Sahara for a while, they ate something at noon and took a nap. At around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the children screamed and rushed to the swimming pool. Because the children were still young, they were only allowed to play in the shallow water. According to the parents, it was best to play in the children's area. However, Jiao Yuan and the others felt that it was embarrassing to swim there, so they compromised and decided to go to the shallow water area. Little Pomelo and Litmus obediently stayed in the children's area next to the shallow water area. There were too many boys there, and it was too noisy. Basically, there were only children younger than Little Pomelo and girls around Litmus's age. Jiao Ma followed Little Pomelo and the others, while Jiao Pa watched Jiao Yuan from next door. When the boys were noisy, they did not know what to do, so Jiao Pa had to keep an eye on them. Zheng Tan also stayed in the children's area. Anyway, with his current size, the children's area was close enough for him to swim in. There's a cat. The children there noticed Zheng Tan. They probably had never seen a cat swim before, so they all came over. Zheng Tan was annoyed. Little Pomelo saw this and brought Zheng Tan ashore to find a shady place to sit down. Jiao Ma also followed. The water temperature is still a little high at this time. It'll be better if we go later, Jiao Ma said as she went to get some fruit juice. Zheng Tan scratched the sand on the ground. It felt different from the sand by the sea. The traces of artificial modification were more obvious. However, to be able to build to this extent and scale was already considered good. It was fine as long as everyone had fun. Ruan Ying walked around with Sahara and carried half a watermelon over. She placed it on the small square table. Ruan Ying, why didn't you go into the water to play? Jiao Ma asked. I did. I just came ashore not long ago. I brought Sahara out for a walk. This guy kept barking. I thought it ate too much today and wanted to poop. In the end, it was just sniffing around and wanted to go into the water. I didn't let it go. We'll see later. As they spoke, Zheng Tan saw Sahara sniffing around the area. It circled around the area twice, then squatted down and pooped. Everyone, Little Pomelo, who was about to eat the watermelon, put it down. It was better to eat it later. At this time, she felt a little nauseous. Ruan Ying wanted nothing more than to kick it. However, the most important thing now was to destroy the evidence. After Sahara finished pooping, she immediately lifted her foot to push the sand over to cover the dog poop. Then she found a small shovel and a plastic bag and shoveled the dog poop and the sand around it into the bag. After pooping, Sahara felt much better. Its bones were much lighter. It pushed the sand back with its feet and barked twice. It was probably expressing its current carefree emotions. Ruan Ying was embarrassed to stay there. She held Sahara's hand and carried the black plastic bag filled with dog poop in her other hand. She walked towards the resting area far away from the swimming pool. As she walked over, someone who knew Ruan Ying greeted her. Ruan Ying, what's good in your hand? Bring it over for me to satisfy my cravings. Ruan Ying had a mysterious look on her face. Good stuff. Hey, let me see. That person said as he went to rummage through the plastic bag. Ruan Ying's face changed from being mysterious to constipated. She whispered something to that person. That person jumped away and wiped the hand that touched the plastic bag on his body. Feeling that something was wrong, he immediately rushed to the sink and washed his hands there. As the weather was too hot, Sahara stuck out its tongue and panted. Its big tail was wagging because it was in a good mood. Ruan Ying looked at her dog and shouted, If you poo around again, I'll beat you to death. She didn't know if Sahara understood, but it continued wagging its big tail. Mommy, look, there's a big bad wolf. A little girl who looked like she was in kindergarten pointed at Sahara and said. Because it was summer, Ruan Ying directly cut Sahara's fur. Other than the slightly long fur on its head that was difficult to cut, the rest of its body was cut into a short hair. It looked a little gray, but it wasn't as dark as a purebred husky. It just looked more comical. Jiaoma looked at the person and dog walking away. She brought little Pomelo to another location. As long as she thought about the pile of dog poop beside her, she couldn't sit still. It was better to change locations. Where's black charcoal? Don't tell me you're pooping everywhere? Jiaoma asked after changing locations. Zheng Tan pulled his ear. How was that possible? That was just Sahara and Huang's style. Lying on the mat, Zheng Tan looked around. Someone had passed by where they were just now. There was also a child playing with the sand. The place where his hand was grabbing the sand was where Sahara pooped. Although Ruan Ying had already shoveled away some of the sand, Zheng Tan still felt uncomfortable. He turned his head to divert his attention and looked at the scenery elsewhere. Xiong's mother was wearing her business attire and sunglasses. She was talking to someone at the pavilion not far away. Looking at her posture, it was obvious that she wasn't going to go into the water. It wasn't easy for everyone to come over to play together, but she still looked so out of place. Zheng Tan didn't have a good impression of Xiong's mother, but it wasn't a bad impression either. It was really hard on Xiong. When it was almost 7 o'clock, Jiaoma brought little Pomelo into the water again. At this time, the water temperature was a lot colder. It was very comfortable to soak in the water. Zheng Tan followed them and swam 2 laps. He bumped into a little kid who was holding a swimming ring and hitting the water surface non-stop. He even chased after Zheng Tan to hit him. When he was stopped by little Pomelo, the little kid used the swimming ring to hit little Pomelo. In the eyes of the adults, this was just children playing around. However, Zheng Tan didn't take it lying down. When no one was paying attention, he stretched out his paw and poked the little kid's swimming ring. When the swimming ring broke, the little kid was so scared that he cried out loud. The others didn't know, but little Pomelo saw the scene just now. The depression of being hit by a swimming ring suddenly disappeared. She brought Zheng Tan upstream. When Jiao Yuan and the others were called ashore, they were a little reluctant to leave. However, after playing for half a day, they were hungry. They went ashore to take a shower in the shower room, changed into clean clothes, and left with their parents. Xiong's parents were already waiting there. After greeting everyone, they drove everyone away. The air conditioner wasn't turned on in the car. The window was open, and the cool night breeze blew in. It was very comfortable. Summer hair dried quickly. Zheng Tan also took a shower in the shower room. Now, the hair on his body was almost dry. Looking out from the car window, the bridge across the river looked beautiful under the lights. However, this beauty was ruined by Sahara's howls. In order to prevent Sahara from sticking its head out of the window, Ruan Ying only lowered the window slightly. Sahara looked out from this small gap. It stretched out its paw and scratched twice, but it was useless. It began to howl. After being yelled at by Ruan Ying, it finally stopped. Our cat is still the best. Jiaoma sighed. Little Pomelo thought of the scene today when Zheng Tan poked the child's swimming ring. She grinned and laughed out loud. Jiao Yuan kept asking her about it. Good job. Jiao Yuan patted Zheng Tan and said. Jiaoma just glared at Jiao Yuan and didn't say anything. A few cars followed in a line. The one at the front was Xiong's car. After crossing the bridge and exiting a crossroad, Zheng Tan felt that the surrounding buildings were quite familiar. When the car slowed down and was about to enter the parking lot, Zheng Tan looked out of the window. F***CK, isn't this third Uncle Fang's Shaoguang Hotel? Jiao Pa's expression was a bit strange. I haven't used the card in my wallet yet. Knowing that Father Jiao was talking about the platinum membership card left behind by third Uncle Fang, Mother Jiao replied with an and said calmly, it's not like you're the one paying. What's the hurry? No rush. I'm just lamenting. We don't usually use this. There will be a time when we need it. Ruan Ying didn't bring Sahara into the hotel. The hotel had a place to take care of it. Sahara stood there, moaning nonstop. After Ruan Ying put out a bowl of dog food, it stopped moaning. Zheng Tan was extremely disdainful. Chapter 95. Originally, the Jiao family members weren't sure if they should leave their cat outside like Sahara, but Ruan Ying said that if the cat was obedient, it would be fine to sneak it in. Other than Xiong's parents, everyone else expressed that they didn't care. They all knew that the Jiao family's cat was obedient. They often saw the Jiao family's cat pick up the children from school. They also heard that Lord Xing really liked this cat and brought it out for a walk. She didn't say anything, so they just turned a blind eye to it. When they entered the hotel lobby, Xiang's mother saw the Jiao family bring in a big bag for the cat. Her frown deepened. Just as she was about to say something, Xiang's father nudged her elbow, indicating that she shouldn't say anything. They were all familiar with the villa complex. Everyone knew that the Jiao family didn't say anything when they brought the cat in. It was clear that no one had any other opinions. When they were at the beach swimming pool today, Xiang's father realized that the Jiao family members got along well with the people from the villa complex. Although one of the Jiao family's parents was only an associate professor and the other was a middle school teacher, to put it bluntly, the people from the villa complex who came together today were all of a higher status than them. But everyone got along well. No one said anything about their titles or positions. This meant that everyone didn't mind and had a good relationship with each other. If he really pointed this out now, it would definitely cause disgust. It was very difficult to book a VIP room in the Chinese restaurant in the hotel. The cost here was also very high. Xiang's mother had put in a lot of effort to treat them to this meal. However, for the Jiao Yuan and the others, the topics between adults were always complicated. After playing for so long, they were starving. As soon as the dishes were served, they were busy eating. No one cared about what they were saying. Zheng Tan sat between little Pomelo and Jiao Ma. The Jiao Pa found a small stool for Zheng Tan to sit on. After all, he couldn't sit at the table. Zheng Tan couldn't see what dishes were served. Anyway, his bowl was always full. Jiao Ma helped little Pomelo pick up some food and also helped Zheng Tan. She even cut the disposable paper cup and filled it with soup for him. Jiao family of 4 was not sitting near the door, nor facing the door. If people came in from outside, they would not be able to see that there was a cat sitting there. However, Xiang's mother had been disgusted by the Jiao family's cat ever since they had entered the hotel. She had wanted to say something several times, but in the end she held herself back. Just then, Xiang's mother's phone rang. "Sorry, I have to go out and take this call." After saying that, Xiang's mother took her bag and went out. Jiao Yuan and the others drank a few glasses of juice and went to the bathroom not long after they had entered the hotel. Maybe it was because they had drunk too much, but after a few minutes, they were ready to go again. This made Zheng Tan want to go out and take a piss too. When Jiao Yuan got up, Zheng Tan jumped over and hooked his paw onto Jiao Yuan's pants. Jiao Yuan, who was not paying attention, was almost stripped of his clothes by Zheng Tan. "Black charcoal, how dare you take off my pants? You're such a hooligan." Zheng Tan. "Hooligan your face. Hurry up and take your paw back. I have to go to the bathroom." Zheng Tan still didn't let go. Damn it, he wanted to go to the bathroom. "Black charcoal wants to go to the bathroom, right?" Little Pomelo said. Zheng Tan was touched. Little Pomelo was really considerate. She was really good at understanding cats. "Heh, your cat is quite sensible." Someone at the table laughed. "It's much better than my Sahara," Ruan Ying also praised. After all, she was a young person and was more open-minded sometimes. After saying a few words, she was knocked on the head by Lan Tianzhu's father. Only then did she realize that it was not appropriate to talk about such indecent things at the dinner table. Ruan Ying was a little annoyed. It was all Sahara's fault. Sahara, who was squatting outside, expressed its innocence. Jiao Pa heard their words and only smiled. He didn't say much. He put down his chopsticks and said to Jiao Yuan, "You go first. I'll bring black charcoal over later." Hearing this, Zheng Tan retracted his paw. He waited for Jiao Pa to bring him out to take a piss. "These guys are not reliable. I'll bring black charcoal out." Jiao Pa whispered to Jiao Ma, "No need. Let me do it. You're a man and you're bringing a big bag to the bathroom. What do you think you're doing?" Jiao Ma stopped Jiao Pa from moving. She brought the big bag over and let Zheng Tan jump in. After all, they were in a hotel. He wasn't sure if he could bring a cat in. It was better to be careful. Jiao Ma carried the bag and brought Zheng Tan to the bathroom. Zheng Tan only realized that he was in an awkward situation when they arrived at the bathroom door. Jiao Ma directly brought Zheng Tan into the ladies' bathroom. The ladies' bathroom. Although Zheng Tan used to be perverted and shameless, he had never entered the ladies' bathroom. Zheng Tan, who was nestled in the big bag, looked like he had been struck by lightning. However, Jiaoma was only paying attention to the surroundings. She didn't notice Zheng Tan's strange behavior. Fortunately, there was no one around. Jiaoma quickly brought Zheng Tan into one of the bathrooms. She closed the door and opened the bag. "Come out." Zheng Tan, this was too embarrassing. He hesitated in the big bag for a while before he jumped out of the bag stiffly. Whether it was the men's or women's bathroom, the toilet bowl was the same inside the partition. Zheng Tan still felt awkward standing next to the toilet bowl. Plus, Jiaoma was watching him. How could he not pee in this situation? What the F***ck? Zheng Tan moved on the edge of the toilet bowl and looked at Jiaoma. Jiaoma said calmly, "Go ahead. It's okay." Zheng Tan. After 2 minutes of brewing emotions, Zhang Ziyan still maintained his posture and showed no intention of peeing. Jiaoma was a bit confused. "Are you not used to it?" Although the bathrooms at home didn't sit like this, Jiaoma had heard people say that their cats knew how to use the toilet bowl. Was it because this place was too strange? Was it nervous? Seeing Jiaoma's confusion, Zheng Tan didn't want to be in a deadlock like this. He began to mentally prepare himself. Right now, he was a cat, not a person. It was like those little boys in kindergarten who went to the ladies' bathroom with their mothers. Even if they were seen, no one would say anything. But, even though he thought so, he still felt awkward. He didn't know if Jiaoma would see his little dick. TSK, so F***king pretentious. Even if she saw it, he would just treat it as a child being seen by his mother. Jiao Yuan had been seen by Jiaoma before. Zheng Tan wagged his tail and adjusted his posture. He lowered his head and stared at the floor tiles. He didn't even look at Jiaoma. After brewing emotions, he finally peed. Just as he finished peeing, someone entered the cubicle next door. Luckily, he was done peeing. Otherwise, Zheng Tan would be even more nervous if someone entered the cubicle. Jiaoma took out a wet tissue and wiped Zheng Tan's paws. She put it in her bag and went to the sink to wash her hands. While she was washing, someone came in from outside. Jiaoma didn't notice. Zheng Tan was also expressing his helplessness about entering the ladies' bathroom for the first time in his life. Neither of them noticed the person who came in. "Hey, Miss Gu." Jiaoma looked at the mirror and saw that the person who just came in was Zhao Lu. "It's you, Miss Zhao. How many times have I told you? Just call me Lu. Why did Miss Gu bring black charcoal in? Do you want to pee?" Zhao Lu even pointed at Zheng Tan's exposed head with a smile. Zheng Tan was even more embarrassed. It was really awkward to talk with two ladies in the ladies' bathroom. "Yeah, it's not convenient to be seen if I brought it in, so I carried my bag." "Oh right, Miss Gu, are Miss Jiao and the two kids here?" "They are. A few families from the courtyard went out to play today. One of their parents is treating them, so they came here. Speaking of which, this is my first time at Beautiful Light." Jiaoma smiled. "Didn't third Uncle Fong give you a card? Anyway, this is third uncle's territory, so there's a discount. If you have time, you can come here to eat. The food is pretty good." "All right." Third Uncle Fong said that he'll come to Chuhua soon. There seems to be a new project here, so he'll visit you. He also brought a cat tree for black charcoal. I heard that it's specially made and doesn't take up much space. After chatting for a while, Jiaoma left with Zheng Tan. Zhao Lu was here because a classmate was treating them to dinner. He had to go upstairs later. Chairman Zhao was talking to someone upstairs. After Jiao Ma and Zhao Lu left, the door next to the room Zheng Tan had stayed in opened. Xiong's mother came out with a complicated expression. She knew the name Zhao Lu. The person who called her just now was having dinner here tonight. He even mentioned Chairman Zhao of Changwei Group. She just had to make a call to confirm if she could match him. As for the third Uncle Fong that Zhao Lu mentioned, was it him? Because they had to drive home that night, they didn't drink or eat for too long. After dinner, they chatted for a while and packed up to go home. Outside, Sahara was playing frisbee with the young waitress who was in charge of taking care of the pets. Sahara was very energetic and didn't look sad at all. Even when she was leaving, Ruan Ying dragged her away. Before she left, she called out to the waitress reluctantly. The few cars lined up and headed towards Tsinghua University again. In the car, the two kids who were full and tired from playing were a little sleepy. Jiao Ma was a little absent-minded. After holding it in for a while, Jiao Ma finally said, "Why do I feel that Xiong's mother is a little strange tonight?" Jiao Pa, who was driving, replied with one word, meaning that he knew. She seemed to be a little strange after she went out to make a phone call. Before she left, she even smiled at Black Charcoal. "Yeah. Tell me, what do you think she meant? Why are you thinking so much?" No matter what her attitude towards Black Charcoal is, she's still a good person. She even helped you transfer to the affiliated high school. I'm not saying that she's not a good person. I just feel that her change in attitude is a little strange. Forget it, I can't guess what people like them are thinking. Jiao Ma took out a thin jacket and covered the two kids in the car seat. She looked at Zheng Tan, who was sleeping in the car seat. "I still think our Black Charcoal is the best. Look at Ruan Ying's dog, it can even betray her." Jiao Pa smiled. "Our Black Charcoal is a fortune cat." "Is there a black fortune cat?" "Who said that there can't be a pure black fortune cat?" When he got home that night, before he pulled out the key, he heard the phone in the bedroom ring. Jiao Pa quickly went in to pick up the phone. "That? Why are you calling me at this time?" "No, my phone is still on." Father Jiao took out his phone and looked at it, then said with certainty, "Did you get the wrong number?" Jiao Pa asked. The other side repeated the phone number again. "You missed the 0. Ah, how can there be Alzheimer's? How can you remember such a long phone number?" If Alzheimer's is really like this, who knows how many people would want to get it? "Tell me, why are you calling?" Jiao Ma ran the bathwater for the kids. When she came out, she saw Jiao Pa hanging up the phone. "Dad, why are you calling?" Jiao Ma asked. "Someone from my hometown is coming in a few days. His kid got into Tsinghua University. That's not bad. In our small town, if he can get into Tsinghua University, he'll be in the top 3 of his class, or even the top 20 in the whole school." Jiao Pa shook his head. "It's not a key high school in the county. It's just a normal high school in town." Chapter 96. It rained in the middle of August, and the temperature dropped a lot. However, as long as the weather cleared up, the temperature would soar at an extremely fast rate. Therefore, many people went out to have fun while the weather was still cool. After dinner, Zheng Tan was picked up by Celestine to go to the night building. Basically, as long as they were not there to talk about business and were just there to have fun, Celestine would drive over to pick up Zheng Tan. Otherwise, he would be bored alone. The night building was a rather sensitive place, and it would not be good to ask his comrades to go there. This time, when Celestine came over, Zheng Tan learned some things from him. According to Celestine, the big cat was named Monsignor by Yi Hao's son. Although Yi Hao was opposed to the name, his son liked it, and so did his father-in-law. Therefore, the name was decided. Moreover, every time they called Monsignor, the big cat responded very enthusiastically. Regarding this, Zheng Tan expressed a considerable amount of envy and jealousy. Why was there General, Prince, Li Yunba, and now Monsignor around him? Why did he have to be called Black Charcoal? This was really F***ket up. On the way to the night building, Celestine told him about the big cat. He heard that after the Monsignor stayed at the villa for a period of time, he was asked to go over by Master Tang VII. This was because the 19th uncle was going to visit him with his super cat the next day. The big cat was named Monsignor because of the battle the next day. Celestine did not know the specific details. He was in the company at that time, so he only knew that the Monsignor returned triumphantly in the end. The whole process took less than a minute. It was an overwhelming victory. Master Tang VII could not stop smiling during that time. The 2 gray parrots he fed no longer plucked their feathers. After spending some time with the Monsignor, their relationship became quite good. Sometimes, Master Tang VII would let the 2 gray parrots out for no reason. They would just jump around the Monsignor. The Monsignor would not bite them and let them play around. When Master Tang VII called Yi Hao, this was what he said. "This cat is good." Say. Yi Hao was helpless. He was surrounded by masters. There was no need for Yi Hao to do anything. Master Tang the Seventh had already prepared some certificates. If someone asked, he could even take out a certificate of a super cat imported from abroad. He even had a clear introduction of the cat's birth. In any case, the big cat had now found a place to stay. It was truly living under the sun and could feel the sun without fear. It did not have to hide from people or worry about being caught. It was not in vain for it to save Yihao. Or perhaps, from then on, that bastard had already started to have ideas. Li Yuanba was smart to be able to find a suitable place to stay after wandering around. When he had time, Yihao's son would even take the big cat to see his wife. They did not have to be sneaky anymore. When he came to the night building, Zheng Tan still went to see Jin and the others first. Jin and the others were resting today, so Celestine took Zheng Tan to Jin's rented apartment. There, Zheng Tan saw the lame dog again. Compared to the last time he saw it, it was much healthier. Its fur also had some luster. When it heard someone coming, it barked twice. When it saw Zheng Tan and Celestine, it wagged its tail and walked to Jin's side to lie down. Now, Jin and the others had also learned a lot of things that they had not come into contact with before. They knew how to live a better life here. Every place had its own rules of survival. As long as they grasped them, they would be able to live more smoothly. After the experience of serving dishes and watching the resident singers and bands, they would be arranged to perform in the North District in September. It was not a long time, but it was a good start. The 5 of them cherished it very much and rehearsed whenever they had time. Jin named their band New Boy. Zheng Tan thought that the name was really awesome. The abbreviation was NB. Not only that, Jin also made a team emblem, which was a pattern of a black cat. Jin felt that they could persist until today and get through that hurdle all because of this cat. Therefore, the team emblem was unanimously approved by the 5 people in the team. After seeing Jin and the others, they came to Celestine's private room in the night building. Celestine also invited Jin and the other 4 to come together. This time, Zheng Tan did not sing, but watched a live concert. Today, a famous foreign band came to the East Palace of the night building. In fact, in many cases, it was possible to find real good music in this kind of night venue. Even if Zheng Tan did not know much about music, his performance skills were really amazing. Only when Celestine brought Zheng Tan over could Jin and the others be called to listen to the performance. Every time Celestine brought Zheng Tan over, Ran Qi was basically nowhere to be seen. That guy now had a desire to avoid cats. Ever since he met Zheng Tan and Monseigneur, Ran Qi felt that all the cats in the world were somewhat abnormal. For this reason, Ran Qi was often laughed at by Leopard and the others, saying that he was neurotic. The night venue in the East Palace would last until after midnight. The specific time was determined by the situation. Zheng Tan did not go back tonight. He lay on the sofa and slept through the night. Celestine wanted to sleep on the sofa, but was kicked down by Zheng Tan. Zheng Tan had always occupied the entire sofa by himself. The next day, after breakfast, Celestine sent Zheng Tan back to the East Courtyard. Like the previous few times, Celestine did not go upstairs. If he went, the 2 children would roll their eyes. It was better not to go, so he drove the car to the courtyard, opened the window, and let Zheng Tan jump out. Then he drove away. When he got home, Zheng Tan found that the door was open. There were guests. Looking into the living room, he saw 2 strangers sitting on the sofa. One was middle-aged, the other was younger, and they were both dressed plainly. The middle-aged man was talking to the Jiaopa. The young man sitting next to him was silent. He lowered his head and only occasionally answered the Jiaopa's questions. When the Jiaopa spoke to them, he had a slight accent. This was also to take care of them. Speaking in a dialect was more intimate. Jiao Ma placed the washed grapes on the coffee table. Then, she went to Jiao Yuan's room to supervise Jiao Yuan in writing English words. Many children in junior high school would attend English cram school this summer. However, with Jiao Ma and little Pomelo in the Jiao family, Jiao Yuan did not need to attend any cram school at all. He had been playing too much during the summer break. Now, he was cooped up at home every day to study English. Sometimes, he would have simple conversations with little Pomelo. Jiao Wei was staring at his fingernails, deep in thought. After the grapes were placed in front of him, He was about to take 2 grapes to eat. However, when he looked up, he saw the black cat at the entrance, craning its neck to look at him. His hand froze. The Jiaopa noticed Jiao Wei's abnormality and followed his gaze to the door. "Black charcoal, you're back?" the Jiaopa said. Zheng Tan wagged its tail slowly and walked directly to little Pomelo's room. "Since there were grapes here, little Pomelo must have grapes too. My cat is called Black Charcoal. Someone took him out to play last night. He just came back." The Jiaopa introduced him to them. Zheng Tan was in little Pomelo's room, eating grapes while listening to the conversation in the living room. Although it was difficult to understand because of the dialect, he could roughly understand the conversation. The 2 men were from Jiaopa's hometown. Although their surnames were Jiao, they were not directly related to Jiaopa. Most of the people living in their hometown had the same surname. The middle-aged man had a good relationship with Jiaopa when he was young. He was only a few years older than Jiaopa. He stopped studying after he finished junior high school and got married earlier than Jiao Yuan. Therefore, his child was 5 or 6 years older than Jiaopa. If Zheng Tan had not listened to their conversation, he would not have thought that the middle-aged man was only a few years older than Jiaopa. He looked like he was in his 40s and had a lot of white hair. Zheng Tan did not expect that the middle-aged man was only in his 40s. The young man named Jiao Wei was the one that Jiaopa and Jiaoma had talked about a while ago. He had been admitted to Tsinghua University from an ordinary high school in town. It was said that the school in town had even awarded him 20,000 yuan to pay for his university fees. That way, he would not need to take out a student loan. However, from the conversation outside, it did not sound like they were just talking about their child. The middle-aged man wanted to open a small restaurant near Tsinghua University. When they were in their hometown, they did not farm since their child was in high school. The couple had opened a restaurant in town to take care of their child. Now that their child was in university, they were far away from home. The couple only had 1 child, so they could not bear to part with him. They wanted to bring all their savings to open a restaurant here. However, when they arrived, they saw that the businesses around the university were doing well. It was not easy to open a restaurant. Now, they could only ask Jiaopa. After all, Jiaopa was more familiar with this area. Jiaopa agreed. He wanted to find out about the surrounding area first before telling them. At noon, the father and son left after having lunch. They rented a private apartment near the side door. It was the place that Zheng Tan knew was not very safe. However, it was fine as long as they did not go out at night. After all, the rent was low. The father and son rented a small single room and paid for 1 month's rent. At this time, not many people came to rent a room. But in a week's time, there will be a lot of people. When school starts, most of the people are parents accompanying their children to university. All kinds of hotels, hostels, and private apartments are full, and the rent will increase. After the father and son left, Jiaopa sighed. Time is really catching up with people. Jiao Wei's hair is already white. Although he is in his 3rd year of high school, it should not be this bad, right? Jiaoma sighed. He said it is hereditary, but I don't know the truth. In the past, that child was not sensible. He only started to learn in his 2nd year of high school. I don't know what he went through, but he became more sensible. He works hard in his studies and helps out at the restaurant. His mother did not allow him to enter the kitchen. The older generation still thinks that a gentleman should stay away from the kitchen. His father had no choice but to do so. But that child is very stubborn. Sometimes, after self-study at night, he will help out at the restaurant to sell fried noodles. When he finally has a break, he will help his father buy groceries. He said that it can relax his mind. Jiaopa said, "That's how children are. When they can't change, they are infuriating. But when they change, they are heartbreaking. But this young man needs to be sharpened." Jiao Yuan, who was sitting in the room writing words, felt a chill down his spine. He had written a word wrongly. "Can you bear to do that?" Jiaopa laughed. "Why can't I bear to do that?" Although they said that, both of them knew that they would not be able to do it. In fact, Jiao Wei's parents could not do it. But they could not do it with Jiao Wei's stubbornness. Chapter 97. For the next few days, Jiaopa had been asking around about the shops and businesses outside. He had not paid attention to this before, but now, he had to ask. Jiao Wei's father and Jiao Wei's father had a good relationship when they were young. Moreover, Jiao Wei's father lived with Jiao Wei's father's father. They usually took care of each other and had a good relationship. Otherwise, Jiao Wei's father wouldn't have personally called Jiao Wei's father to ask for help. In fact, Jiao Pa had other considerations. He would be going abroad next year. If Jiao Wei's family was around, they could help take care of his family. Before he went abroad, Jiao Yuan was about to enter junior high school, and Mother Jiao was also in junior high school. Although Tsinghua University was not far from that junior high school, roads were being repaired everywhere. Father Jiao did not want the two of them to ride around every day, so he let them eat lunch at school and then go home for dinner in the afternoon. Anyway, the school had a rule that they could not study at night in the first and second year of junior high school. It was all voluntary. The parents in the courtyard all agreed to go home at night. Jiao Pa and little Pomelo could go to the cafeteria for lunch. It was not their first time eating there anyway. Jiao Pa's office had a foldable bed for lunch break. Little Pomelo could take a nap there. As for Zheng Tan, he could go to the cafeteria with them. After a few days of investigation, Jiao Pa had his eyes on a shop. However, the shop did not used to be a restaurant. Now that the shop wanted to sell, the Jiao Pa came looking for him. He asked Jiao Wei and his son to have a talk. Although the place was not very close to the school gate, there was no other way. The business of the people who were close to the school was very good now. Those who wanted to sell their business had already been taken over. However, Jiao Wei and his son were satisfied with the shop. They were not procrastinators. After they agreed on the price, they wanted to sign the agreement. To be on the safe side, Father Jiao found a young professor from the law school in the courtyard to come over and help. Chu Xiangyang, who lived across the street, heard that an acquaintance of the Jiao family was going to open a restaurant, so he also came over in flip-flops to help. He even politely asked if the restaurant would deliver food in the future. The shop owner looked at the professor, an associate professor, and a talkative young man in front of him. His face twitched a few times. He thought they were just country bumpkins who knew how to cook. But this lineup was weird. There were even professionals present. Why use a sledgehammer to crack a nut? With the help of several intellectuals, Jiao Wei and his son were also relieved. They were afraid of being cheated when they were outside. They had spent a lot of money to set up this shop, but now they felt at ease. They wanted to treat them to a meal, but the young professor and Chu Xiangyang refused. They said that they would come again when the shop was opened in the future. It was not troublesome now. Chu Xiangyang even volunteered to come up with a design. Jiao Wei and his son were very grateful. Chu Xiangyang waved his hand and said, "If your food is to my liking, I will depend on your family to support me in the future." He wondered what Chu Xiangyang's parents would think if they heard this. After they signed the agreement, they still needed to buy some tools, especially tables and chairs. But before they could find a place to buy them, Celestine heard about it when he came to pick up Zheng Tan. He called Yi Hao and asked Yi Hao for some discarded tables, chairs, and miscellaneous items. Although they did not look suitable for a small restaurant like this, they could still make some changes. The quality was good. They did not intend to charge money for these things. Yi Hao and Celestine did not lack money, but Jiao Wei and his son did not agree. They gave Celestine 1,000 renminbi. Celestine took out two 100 renminbi notes and put the rest back on the table. Celestine was so attentive because he did not want to go to the Jiao family's house to eat every time he came here. He was also not happy to eat outside. It was boring to eat alone. Now that he knew that an acquaintance of the Jiao family had opened a small restaurant, he could still freeload some food and chat with them when he came over. If he stayed out too late, he could even bring some supper for his comrades at the company. Those men weren't used to eating food that was too delicate. Jiao Wei's hometown cuisine should be pretty good. After Jiao Wei's mother came over, the couple did not want Jiao Wei to suffer. They just had to look after the renovation of the shop. There was nothing to buy. Even if they wanted to buy something, there were all kinds of shops around Tsinghua University. There were also a few large supermarkets in the central square. They did not need to worry too much. The couple wanted Jiao Wei to familiarize himself with the school. Jiao Pa originally wanted Jiao Yuan to bring him around the school, but Jiao Wei refused. It was too hot outside, and it was not good to let a child follow him around. Moreover, he already had a map of the school, so he would not get lost. Jiao Pa thought for a while and shouted to Zheng Tan, who was eating grapes in little Pomelo's room. Black Charcoal, can you help Jiao Wei familiarize himself with the school? Jiao Wei. In his hometown, many people raised cats. The villagers raised cats to catch mice, so there was no such thing as a pet cat. After Jiao Wei went to school in town, there were some people from better families who kept pets like dogs and cats. Jiao Wei always thought that it was a waste of money. Maybe it was because of his personal situation, but he didn't really understand those people. After coming here, Jiao Wei saw that Uncle Ming Sheng, who his parents said was very capable, also had a cat. He also doted on the cat. Although Jiao Wei did not show anything on his face, he had some thoughts in his mind. Not only Uncle Ming Sheng's family, but even Chu Xiangyang, who helped them with the design, and Celestine, who helped them with the furniture, treated the black cat very well. Jiao Wei always thought that it was because of Uncle Ming Sheng, but he still felt that it was a little strange. Was it really a case of a man ascending to the heavens? However, the people here didn't have much awe when they mentioned the university teachers, associate professors, and professors who they had always thought were high and mighty. At most, it was like how they talked about university students. They were a little envious, but they weren't unreachable existences. Jiao Wei thought about what his homeroom teacher said to him before he came here. In a big city like Chuhua City, university students might not be worth much. Even graduate students and doctoral students would be overflowing and depreciating in the next few years. No one could explain the cruelty behind the prosperity. They had to rely on themselves to see and adapt. Those who could not adapt might not even be comparable to a cat. When Jiao Wei's thoughts started to wander again, Zheng Tan slowly walked out with the grapes in his mouth. He looked at the person sitting on the sofa with the school map in a daze and jumped up to pat him on the head. Jiao Wei recovered from his deep thoughts. He thought that Uncle Ming Sheng had knocked him, but when he looked up, he saw a black shadow flash by. There was only a black cat in front of him. Associate Professor Jiao Jiao was talking in Jiao Yuan's room. Little Pomelo did not come out, so it was obvious who had patted him. After talking to Jiao Yuan for a while, Jiao Pa left the room and said to Jiao Wei, "My cat likes to run outside and is very familiar with the school. If you want to find a building but don't know the place, just tell it. It's best if you speak in Mandarin. It probably won't understand dialects." Jiao Wei did not really believe Jiao Pa's words, but out of politeness, he agreed. Watching the man and the cat go downstairs, Jiao Pa took today's newspaper, opened it, and sat on the sofa to read. Young people were always more open-minded and could easily accept new and strange things. Plus, they would spend more time together in the future, so it was a good thing to let Jiao Wei interact with his cat first. Otherwise, he would be too scared. On the other side, Jiao Wei followed the cat downstairs and realized that there was no access card. Just as he was about to go up and ask, he saw the black cat in front of him jump up and rub against the card swipe area. With a click, the door opened. Jiao Wei was speechless. Zheng Tan ignored Jiao Wei's surprise and walked straight out. It was around 3 o'clock in the afternoon and the sun was still shining brightly. However, there were trees planted on the side of the road, so it was cooler to walk in the shade. The giant sycamore trees blocked the sunlight that shone on the road, leaving only a few scattered light spots. Gusts of wind blew, and the light spots on the road flickered as the branches swayed. Jiao Wei looked at the road in front of him and took a deep breath. Just this road alone was many times higher than their school principal. How high could they fly? They had to fly to find out. Sure enough, Zheng Tan was not in the mood to observe what the man behind him was thinking. He was now thinking about which road to take without being burned by the sun. He heard that black absorbed heat. On the sidewalk, the cat walked in front and the man followed behind. Neither of them had decided on their destination. Zheng Tan looked at the road with shade and walked in that direction. When there was no shade, he suddenly realized that he had arrived at the student dormitory. The student dormitory was divided into several areas. The undergraduate students and graduate students were separated. There was a new area at the back, probably for the freshmen. It was the land near the remote forest. The dormitory had been completed and would be ready for use in September. Zheng Tan was now in the graduate student dormitory area. Zheng Tan moved his ears and suddenly heard a familiar sound. Ignoring Jiao Wei, Zheng Tan climbed up a large sycamore tree and looked for the dormitory where the sound came from. When he was close to the third floor, Zheng Tan found the source of the sound. It was a dormitory on the third floor. The windows were all open in summer, and because of the orientation, there was no sunlight shining in at this time. In Tsinghua University, other than the international students' dormitory, the other dormitories did not have air conditioning installed. It was said that air conditioning would be installed in the doctoral dormitory by the end of this year. As for when it would be the turn of the master's and undergraduate students, it was unknown. The most annoying thing was that there was King electricity restriction. High-power appliances could not be used. They could not use little sun in winter, and they could not rent air conditioners in summer. After the students protested, the restriction on electricity in the master's dormitory would be lifted within 2 years. As for the undergraduate students, they could only continue to endure. The weather in Tsinghua City was so hot that people wanted to die from the heat. During the day in the dormitory, just relying on electric fans would not solve many problems. The master's dormitory was not like the undergraduate students. It was divided into 4 rooms, 6 rooms, 8 rooms, etc. All of the dormitories were 4 rooms with separate bathrooms. There was a desk below and a bed above. At this moment, Zheng Tan saw that in the dormitory, there were 4 male students. They moved the closet to make space, and each of them stayed in an inflatable bathtub filled with water. In the middle of the 4 inflatable bathtubs, there was a small stool. On the stool was a chessboard. The 4 of them were playing aeroplane chess. In the larger inflatable bathtub, Su Chu was in it. He had a towel on his head, one hand holding a piece of watermelon, and the other throwing dice. Ha! My last plane is also entering the finish line. Those who lost, hurry up and bring me the watermelon. Don't miss a piece. Those who don't have it, hurry up and cut the melon. As Su Chu spoke, he picked up a toy yellow duck that was floating in the inflatable bathtub and pinched it twice. It made a beeping sound and he laughed like an idiot. Zheng Tan. Chapter 98. When Zheng Tan came down from the tree, Jiao Wei looked at him strangely. He probably didn't understand why Zheng Tan would suddenly climb up a tree and look into the dorm. Zheng Tan wagged his tail. He didn't care what Jiao Wei thought. After looking at him, he lay down and yawned. There was no shade further ahead. Many of the dorms were built later, so the greenery around them wasn't as good as the old dorms. Most of the trees were small camphor trees. The sycamore trees weren't very tall either. Even if they were tall, they weren't luxuriant enough to block the sun. Also, Jiao Pa only asked Zheng Tan to lead the way. As for where to go, the choice was still up to Jiao Wei. However, that guy didn't say anything for a long time, so Zheng Tan was more casual. After walking for so long, it was time to take a break. Jiao Wei saw that the cat didn't continue walking. He wiped the sweat off his forehead. It wouldn't hurt to rest for a while. There was an on-campus supermarket downstairs. After walking for so long, he was a bit thirsty. Jiao Wei folded the campus map in his hand and walked towards the supermarket. After 2 steps, he stopped and looked back. He was hesitating if he should say something to the cat and ask it to stay where it was. But before he could say anything, he saw the cat running towards the supermarket. Zheng Tan saw Jiao Wei walking towards the supermarket and knew what he was going to do, so he rushed over. He was a bit thirsty too. Besides, he didn't lead the way for nothing. He had to get something in return. Since the cat ran towards the supermarket, Jiao Wei had no choice but to follow it. At this time, there weren't many students in the supermarket. There were only a few waitresses chatting there. A few student couples were sitting at the milk tea stall, enjoying the air conditioning. There was no sign at the entrance that said pets were not allowed. Jiao Wei didn't know if he would be scolded if he brought the cat in, but it wasn't up to him to decide. The cat had already entered the supermarket. A waitress who was cutting watermelon at the door saw the man and cat duo and was about to say something, but in the end, she didn't say anything. Sometimes, some students would bring their pet dogs in. As long as they didn't cause any bad effects, no one would say anything. As for cats, it was the first time they saw someone bring them in. Seeing the cat's cat tag hanging on its neck, it looked quite proper. The staff in the supermarket looked at it and continued with their work. Some of them were bored and kept looking at it. This made Jiao Wei feel a lot of pressure. Jiao Wei went inside and took a bottle of mineral water from the fridge. There was nothing else he wanted to buy. He had always been thrifty. He looked at the cat next to him. This cat seemed to be quite sensible. It didn't use a leash, didn't run around on the shelves, and didn't pick up random things. Zheng Tan watched as Jiao Wei took the bottle of mineral water and looked at the fridge beside him. He jumped onto the fridge and looked at Jiao Wei. Does it want to eat ice cream? A waitress walked over, but didn't open the fridge. She was still a little worried about a cat. If the cat jumped into the fridge and was seen by others, she wouldn't be able to sell the ice cream. Zheng Tan looked inside through the transparent sliding door, then patted the place where the ice cream was placed. The waitress looked at Jiao Wei. Seeing Jiao Wei nod, she opened the sliding door and took out a box of two-colored ice cream. Zheng Tan had an idea of the price of ice cream. Jiao Yuan and the others often used their own pocket money to buy ice cream. They would also discuss the price of different types of ice cream and ice cream. Therefore, Zheng Tan knew which brand was more expensive and which ice cream was more expensive. After getting what he wanted, Zheng Tan jumped down from the fridge and walked towards the exit. "Your cat is so smart," said the waitress who helped him get the ice cream. Jiao Wei's mouth twitched. At this moment, he realized that something was wrong. He bought a 1 yuan bottle of mineral water for himself, but bought a 2 yuan ice cream for his cat. He didn't expect himself to do such a stupid thing. After leaving the supermarket, Jiao Wei found a place with a stone bench under the shade of a tree and sat down. He put the ice cream on the stone table, but didn't open the lid. He just wanted to see what the cat was going to do. Zheng Tan didn't care. It held the ice cream box, then bit the sealed lid and pulled it back. After opening it, it didn't use a spoon. It just licked it with its tongue. Cats had soft thorns on their tongues. Some of the thorns could be scraped off by licking. Jiao Wei choked. No wonder it was the associate professor's cat. Its IQ was really different. But, would the cat have diarrhea after eating ice cream? I should tell Uncle Ming Sheng and the others when I go back. Opening the campus map, Jiao Wei could find the undergraduate dormitory area. It wasn't far from here. Every dormitory was marked with a building number, so it wasn't hard to find. When the semester started, he just had to find out which building he would be assigned to. Tsinghua University was really big. It was far beyond Jiao Wei's imagination. In the past, he had only heard about the university from others. Only after experiencing it for himself did he feel that it was more real and stronger. After resting for a while, Jiao Wei tried to say a few words to Zheng Tan with an awkward accent. Zheng Tan followed Jiao Wei's instructions and took him to see the buildings and teaching areas. On the way back, Zheng Tan took Jiao Wei to some small paths. When they passed by Old Man Lan's small flower garden, the big iron gate of the flower garden was open. Zheng Tan stuck his head in and looked inside. Old Man Lan was wearing a straw hat and busying himself. Old Man Lan was about to get up and drink some water, but when he looked up, he saw Zheng Tan sticking his head in the door. The black fur on his body was too eye-catching. "What are you looking at, little bastard?" Zheng Tan tugged at her ears. What kind of professor was this? She kept calling him little bastard and little bastard. He turned his head and looked at Jiao Wei behind him. As expected, Jiao Wei looked very awkward. In fact, Old Man Lan was only a little more open with people he was familiar with. He was more formal with students and people he was not familiar with. Zheng Tan walked 2 steps inside and saw Jiao Wei still standing outside the door. He looked at him and wagged his tail, indicating for him to follow. Old Man Lan thought Zheng Tan had come out for a walk again. When he saw this, he asked, "Who's outside?" Jiao Wei braced himself and walked in. He looked in the direction of the voice. "Hello, sorry to disturb you." Old Man Lan frowned. "Who are you?" Jiao Wei walked over and explained his background and his relationship with Jiao Pa. Jiao Wei didn't meet Old Man Lan on the 3rd floor when they went to the Jiao family's place. So this was the first time they met. "Oh, a guest from the Jiao family. You're early. It's not time for registration yet." Old Man Lan said and took out a straw fruit platter. "I just washed horse milk." It's okay, I brought water, just eat it. Old Man Lon glared at him. Then he plucked a few fruits and handed them to Jingtan. Jiao Wei. Why was cats treated better than humans? Jiao Wei sat down on a small stool. He ate 2 fruits and stopped. He was a little restrained. But then he gradually relaxed a little as Old Man Lon asked him questions. He didn't interact much with others before. One reason was because he was nervous in a completely unfamiliar environment. The other reason was because of his dialect. No matter how ambitious he was when he left the small town, it was his first time traveling so far away. It was his first time coming to such a big city. It was his first time being surrounded by people who didn't speak the dialect of his hometown. There was no sense of familiarity. When he got off the train, he still felt a little inferior. Moreover, when he asked for directions, when people heard his accent, they looked at him differently. However, the old man in front of him also spoke with a dialect accent. Although everyone's dialect was different, it still reduced Jiao Wei's nervousness by a lot. Having taught for so many years and taught countless students, Old Man Lon understood the psychology of these new students. Talk more. You'll get used to it. There are plenty of students like you. Who would dare to look down on others? Teachers who taught middle school had to take a Mandarin test, but those who taught universities didn't have such a rule. Many old professors had bad accents, but no one dared to laugh at them. They still respected them. Both spoke in dialects, but one was an ordinary student and the other was an old professor. The treatment was completely different. Zheng Tan was lying on the side, listening to Old Man Lon scolding Jiao Wei with half-truths and half-lies. He ate the fruits in the plate. When Old Man Lon finished speaking, he realized that the milk in the plate had been reduced by half. Foodie! Old Man Lon rolled up the newspaper beside him and knocked Zheng Tan's head. Then he said to Jiao Wei, "Young man, you're strong enough. Come, give me a hand. Move the flower pot. Hey, be careful. You can hurt yourself, but don't drop my flowers." When it was almost 5 o'clock, Old Man Lon followed Zheng Tan and Jiao Wei to the eastern courtyard. The old man swung the small shovel in his hand as he talked to Jiao Wei beside him. Jiao Wei was carrying a pot of flowers. It wasn't heavy, so it was easy for him to carry it. The conversation with the old man wasn't as boring as before. Zheng Tan wasn't interested in listening to their conversation. He wanted to go back quickly, but he felt that it wasn't right. He could only walk and stop. At the same time, he complained that the two were walking too slowly. Along the way, they met a few acquaintances from the courtyard who were heading to the school's swimming pool. They greeted Zheng Tan, Old Man Lon, and asked about Jiao Wei. Old Man Lon only said that he was a temporary helper. Jiao Wei was quite surprised. When he first saw the old man, he thought that he was just a gardener. He saw that the old man was dressed quite plainly, similar to the white singlet that he often wore at home. Now, he realized that the old man beside him was also a big shot. What puzzled him the most was the cat. It was normal for people to greet Professor Lon, but why did they also call the cat? Does everyone know black charcoal? Jiao Wei asked the question in his heart. Old Man Lon smiled. It's the tyrant of the Eastern District. Who in our courtyard doesn't know it? I heard that a while ago, it brought the cats from the courtyard and fought with the cats from the Western District. Now, the cats from the Western District don't dare to come to our courtyard. This was actually a false accusation against Zheng Tan. At that time, it was the cats from the Western District who started the fight. That evening, he was playing with Depang, Huang, and the others in the courtyard. The cats from the Western District came over and were quite fierce. One even climbed over the balcony to steal Depang's food. Wasn't that asking for trouble? Although he knew that the cats from both sides would fight, he didn't expect them to be so bold as to come to his door. Even the castrated Huang was unhappy. That day, they directly beat up the cats from the Western District, and then drove them all the way back to their nest in the Western District. In fact, the cats from the Western District should be glad. That day, the dogs from the courtyard were taken out for a walk, and General wasn't at home. Otherwise, they would have ended up worse. However, it was better for the cats to solve their own problems. Chapter 99. It was the end of August and the beginning of September. The campus was very lively. Parents of new students were everywhere. They were taking pictures of many iconic buildings in Tsinghua University. When Zheng Tan went out for a walk, he saw some parents who were smiling and saying goodbye to their children at the entrance of the dormitory. They were about to leave to catch the train home, but they started to cry after walking a short distance. Some of the aunties cried so much that their makeup was ruined. Jiao Pa said that many parents did not send their children to school because they were afraid that they would miss them. Although those parents did not come, they would also cry for a long time in their hometown after sending their children to the train. Zheng Tan did not understand. At least, he had not experienced it himself. When he was in university, he went to school with a few bad friends. The school was not far from where he lived. Moreover, he had a cold relationship with his parents. He did not feel that way at all. As a father, he did not understand the reluctance to part with his children when they grew up. It was a strange feeling. On the Jiao family's side, Jiao Yuan was brought by Jiao Ma to the junior high school with a few other parents. They did not have to look at the class list like the other students because they already knew which class they were in and which class they were in. With the help of a few special parents, the children in the courtyard were all in the same class. They were afraid that they would be bullied there. The children in the junior high school were immature and impulsive. No one knew if there would be a fight, so it was better for them to stick together. Moreover, if there were any problems, the parents would know in advance so that they could ride home with each other. Jiao Yuan and the others were very happy about this. At noon, they stayed at school for lunch. Jiao Ma was busy at school. Now that she had to take care of Jiao Yuan, she did not go home at noon. She took the other children to eat in the staff cafeteria. Compared to the student cafeteria, the food in the staff cafeteria was slightly better. As little Pomelo had skipped a grade, she was in the 4th grade when school started. She knew some of her classmates, such as Wuxia and Xianxia, who lived in the West District's family compound. One of them was the vice class monitor, while the other was the study committee member. They were considered as the big sisters in the class. Since they were familiar with little Pomelo, Father Jiao was not worried that little Pomelo would be bullied because of her young age. At noon, the after-school music started playing in affiliated primary school. Jiao Wei stood at the entrance of the affiliated primary school and looked at the children running out. He was looking for little Pomelo. Every day at noon, he would come over and wait for little Pomelo to go to his restaurant for lunch. Jiao Wei's small restaurant had just opened. Although its location was not as good as other restaurants, there were a lot of people when school started, and there were many returning customers. During this period of time, business had been good, and they had hired a fellow villager to help out. When he was free, Jiao Wei would also go over to help out, but he was always rejected by his mother, who did not want him to be tainted by smoke and smoke. Originally, Jiao Pa and little Pomelo wanted to eat in the cafeteria, but Jiao Wei's parents asked them to eat in a restaurant. After school, there would be a lot of people, and the cafeteria would be crowded. Besides, home-cooked food was always more comfortable. Jiao Pa wanted to pay, but Jiao Wei's parents refused. In the end, under Jiao Pa's persuasion, they only accepted a small amount. Every time Jiao Pa and little Pomelo went to the cafeteria, the portions of the food were big, and the oil used was also of good quality. Jiao Pa was also busy during this period of time, and he did not have much time. Therefore, the task of picking up little Pomelo fell on Jiao Wei's shoulders. Little Pomelo originally said that she could go by herself. She knew the way, and she was already in the 4th grade. There was no need for an adult to follow her. However, Jiao Pa was not at ease, especially now that there were so many people at the school. There were people who stole wallets, phones, bicycles, and so on. Who could be sure that there were no kidnappers? Jiao Wei was not as gloomy as before. He was more relaxed now, and his Mandarin was more standard and natural. The surrounding dialects made him feel more relaxed. After all, the school was much simpler than the society. Sometimes, people who knew little Pomelo would talk to him, and Jiao Wei would reply with a smile. While waiting, Jiao Wei noticed movement on the wall next to him. He did not need to look to know that it was the Jiao family's precious black cat. When Jiao Wei came to pick up little Pomelo on the first day, Zheng Tan had too much fun outside, so he arrived a little late. After Jiao Wei picked up little Pomelo, he was ready to take her to his shop. However, little Pomelo did not want to leave. She kicked the pebbles on the ground with the tip of her foot and waited at the school gate, looking around from time to time. After asking, Jiao Wei found out that little Pomelo was waiting for her black cat. She would not leave until it arrived. Jiao Wei raised his head and looked at the black cat standing on the wall. During this period of time, he had gradually gotten used to the cat's behavior. He also understood why the Jiao family treasured it so much. Jiao Yuan had told him about the cat's glorious deeds. It was hard to imagine that it was a cat that had done all those deeds. However, the Jiao family seemed to treat it like another child. Jiao Wei could not understand this. No matter how smart and considerate it was, wasn't it still a cat? Zheng Tan could spot little Pomelo among the children at a glance. When he saw little Pomelo, he jumped down from the wall and waited for her to come out before going to Jiao Wei's restaurant to get some food. Jiao Wei's restaurant had a simple shed upstairs. It was built by the original owner and was used to store goods. Now, Jiao Wei's parents had a small room for them to rest and take a nap when there were no customers. There was also a folding square table, similar to the one in Jiao Yuan's room. Jiao Pa and little Pomelo usually ate there. Although it was a little hot, the temperature in September was not as hot as it was in July and August. It was fine to plug in an electric fan with a wire. Jiao Wei's family had gotten used to the way the Jiao Pa treated Zheng Tan. Therefore, when they gave the cat food, they treated it the same way they treated humans. Jiao Ma bought a bowl for Zheng Tan and put it there. Today, the Jiao Pa was not free at noon. Exin and the others had already brought lunch for him, so he did not come over to eat. After little Pomelo finished her lunch, Jiao Wei drove her home. At noon, he would stay with the Jiao family for a nap. Then he would go to class in the afternoon and drive little Pomelo to school. When he went back, he brought a takeout. It was the lunch that Chu Xiangyang had ordered. Just as he walked a few steps into the courtyard, a private car drove in. Jiao Wei looked at it and saw 4 laps. Rich people. Unexpectedly, the car stopped next to them. The car window opened, and a familiar face appeared in front of Zheng Tan. Pomelo, black charcoal. Little Pomelo looked at the man and grinned. She had a good impression of Fang Xiaokong. She knew that this man was the one who had brought black charcoal home. Therefore, every time she saw Fang Xiaokong, she would smile. Zheng Tan was still the same. He did not react when he saw the man. Who is this? Fang Xiaokong looked at Jiao Wei. After Jiao Wei introduced himself, Fang Xiaokong said, "That's good. Help me move the things later." After Fang Xiaokong parked the car, Zheng Tan went over to see what Fang Xiaokong was carrying. After getting out of the car, Fang Xiaokong lifted little Pomelo up and hugged her. He had a little daughter himself, and he liked to do this. Little Pomelo did not reject this. After hugging little Pomelo, Fang Xiaokong lifted Zheng Tan, who was about to jump into the car to see what was going on. Zheng Tan stepped on his face. Fang Xiaokong did not mind. He smiled and put Zheng Tan down. "You seem to be heavier." Jiao Wei, who was standing next to them, twitched his face. Of course, this cat was a glutton. How could it not be heavy? It ate a big bowl of food every meal. Fang Xiaokong did not say anything else. He opened the car door. There were 2 big cardboard boxes in the back seat. Zhang Zian could not tell what they were. "These are?" Jiao Wei asked. Fang Xiaokong said proudly, "Cat tree." Jiao Wei was speechless. Little Pomelo helped carry Chu Xiangyang's lunch. Jiao Wei and Fang Xiaokong each carried a cardboard box. Jiao Wei did not know what to say. Cat tree, cats again. 2 big cardboard boxes. They were quite heavy. They carried the boxes to the 5th floor. After resting for a while, Chu Xiangyang came back with his lunch. He ate and studied the contents of the boxes. Although little Pomelo wanted to see how the cat tree was installed, Fang Xiaokong would not start work during the afternoon nap. He had to wait until after the afternoon nap. Fang Xiaokong wandered to the balcony and called Jiao Pa, "Hello, Mr. Jiao. This is Fang Xiaokong." Jiao Pa answered the phone in a hurry. He did not see the caller ID. When he heard Fang Xiaokong, he did not react immediately. He paused for a few seconds and said, "Oh, Mr. Fang. So, I'm at your house now. I've made a cat tree and I'm going to install it in the afternoon. Let me tell you first. There was no one in the Jiao family's house in the afternoon, so Fang Xiaokong had to tell the owner that he was going to install a cat tree. Jiao Pa did not object. He was looking forward to Fang Xiaokong's work. Jiao Wei, who was sitting in the living room, was speechless at this seemingly rich man. Here was another man who treated cats better than people. He looked at the black cat lying on the edge of the cardboard box. Why couldn't he understand these people? After the afternoon nap, Jiao Wei left to go to class. He also sent little Pomelo to school. Before leaving, little Pomelo looked at the cardboard box in the middle of the living room. Zheng Tan stayed at home and watched Fang Xiaokong assemble the cat tree. Zheng Tan had seen a cat tree in Xiaoguo's house, so he had a general idea of what it was. However, looking at Fang Xiaokong's cat tree, it was slightly different from what he had imagined. Although there were some parts that he did not understand, there were some similarities. For example, the shelf installed in the corner of little Pomelo's room was made of pillars wrapped with hemp rope, pallets, and some planks. The difference was that there were also some things fixed on the wall. Zheng Tan could use the small planks that protruded out of the wall to walk to the newly installed tunnel near the ceiling. From this tunnel, he could walk to the window on little Pomelo's door. When the window was open, he could jump out directly. When the window was closed, he could look into the living room. The shelf was independent. If he felt that it was not suitable to put it here, he could move it to another place in the house. The flannelette on the shelf could be changed and washed, so there was no need to worry about the bacteria growing if it was too dirty. Except for the walkway, near the ceiling and the steps, on the wall, most of the other connecting pillars were easy to disassemble and were nail-free. Even without nails, the entire shelf was stable and could be manually disassembled without tools. The space in the Jiao family was too small. Fang Xiaokong could not create the ideal effect, so he could only make do with it. He also wanted to install some in the living room, but after all, it was not his own home, and the space here was too small. After thinking about it, Fang Xiaokong gave up. He would leave the rest of the materials for when the Jiao family wanted to install it. Regardless of make do or not, the Jiao family was quite satisfied with the cat tree. Little Pomelo also liked it very much. Anyway, there were not many things in her room, so it was not a big deal to put a cat tree. Moreover, the remaining space was reasonably used during the assembly, so it looked similar to the previous one. It had to be said that Fang Xiaokong did put a lot of thought into this cat tree. However, on the night that the cat tree was assembled, Zheng Tan still got into little Pomelo's bed. Chapter 100. Fang Xiaokong was also a busy man. After the Jiao family finished installing the cat tree, Zheng Tan didn't see him again. The next day, Fang Xiaokong took the time to call and ask about the use of the car. Father Jiao only said, "It's pretty good. Charcoal often stays on it during the day when he's at home." Jiao family knew that their cat only slept on the bed and sofa at night. Although he didn't sleep in the cat nest installed on the cat tree at night, Zheng Tan would jump on the cat tree when he was bored during the day. He always felt uncomfortable if he didn't move. In the past, it was inconvenient because of the small space at home. Now that there was a cat tree, he tried his best to move it. Anyway, Fang Xiaokong paid for it, so he didn't feel bad even if it broke. Today, when school was about to end, Zheng Tan walked to little Pomelo's school. Strangely, he didn't see Jiao Wei when he arrived today. A few days ago, Jiao Wei would be waiting for Zheng Tan here before Jiao Wei arrived. Today was the first time. Did something happen? To be honest, the end of school in affiliated elementary school was actually a little earlier than the end of classes for college students. At first, Zheng Tan saw Jiao Wei come early, so he thought that Jiao Wei didn't have classes in the morning. However, it seemed that Jiao Wei was always like this, except for today. Zheng Tan lowered his head and pondered. It seemed that he had forgotten something. When the music of the end of class sounded, hurried footsteps approached. "Phew, I made it." Zheng Tan looked sideways. Jiao Wei was wearing a military training uniform. He stood there panting with his hands on his waist. He had just run over, and his face was covered in sweat. Military training. So that's what it was about. Zheng Tan had almost forgotten about it. The freshmen of Tsinghua University started school a little later. They only started to register when the second and third year classes started. The military training would also be delayed for a period of time. Whether it was Xin or Su Chu, they did not have any military training when they started school. Zheng Tan had forgotten about it. Now that he remembered, new graduate students did not have military training, but undergraduate students did. The military training had not even started. What kind of class was Jiao Wei attending? That night, when Jiao Pa told Zheng Tan about it, he found out that freshman classes hadn't started yet. On the other hand, Jiao Wei had been skipping second-year classes. Anyway, once they entered the classroom, the teachers wouldn't know everyone, so they wouldn't check. At the same time, they weren't very unwilling to let those who came to join them. Some teachers especially liked those who came to join them. In Jiao Wei's opinion, Tsinghua University was a good school. Many of the teachers were famous professors. However, it was a huge loss for him to join their classes. Furthermore, it was free to join their classes. Jiao Wei felt that he was taking advantage of them. That was why he was very active. If he didn't have any textbooks, he would borrow them from the library. Many of the freshmen had not completed their application, so Jiao Pa lent him his library card. The books that he was using previously were all borrowed from the library. At noon, when they went to Jiao Wei's restaurant for lunch, they saw some students in military training uniforms everywhere in the small food stores near the school gate. Now, when people saw those in military training uniforms, they knew that they were freshmen. Jiao Wei's parents were heartbroken. However, they were happy to see their son wearing the military training uniform. They said that they would borrow someone's camera to take a few photos as a souvenir. Jiao Wei's father also asked Jiao Wei about the location of the military training. He said that he would go and take a look when he was free. The military training lasted from morning to night. It would last until the holidays. There was plenty of time. Military training. Zheng Tan looked at the sun above his head. The temperature had been rising recently. Hence, that afternoon, after little Pomelo finished her afternoon nap, Zheng Tan and Jiao Wei sent little Pomelo to the affiliated to Renmin University of China. Then, Jiao Wei rushed to the military training grounds with a sports cup full of water in his hand. When Jiao Wei ran to the training grounds, he didn't notice that there was a cat following behind him. However, Zheng Tan was running in the bushes and not on the sidewalk. If one didn't look carefully, they wouldn't notice him. The military training grounds were divided according to the faculties: science, engineering, humanities, social sciences, medicine, etc. They were all in different areas. Anyway, Tsinghua University was big enough. There were a few sports grounds. There was also a phenomenon. For example, the humanities and foreign languages faculties in the humanities and social sciences faculties in the economics and management faculties in the social sciences faculties had a lot of girls. Hence, every time there was military training, there would be a circle of wolves surrounding the training grounds. The opposite was true for the engineering faculties. More than 70% of the students were guys. The remaining 30% were mostly girls. What the F***CK? This was the common thought of all the guys in the engineering faculties. Jiao Wei and the rest of the engineering faculties were assigned to one of the sports grounds. This was only one of the secondary sports grounds in the school. The surrounding facilities were relatively simple. They were divided into groups according to their faculties and trained on the track next to the football field. The red plastic track outside the football field was filled with groups of camouflage uniforms. The training hadn't officially started yet, so the students were all gathered together and talking. Zheng Tan saw Jiao Wei walk towards one of the groups of people and start talking to the people there. It was 2 in the afternoon. The sun was scorching. The high temperature of more than 30 degrees made the freshmen a little listless. Beside the plastic track was a grandstand. There were some trees behind the steps of the grandstand. Although they weren't tall, it was still a little shady on the steps. Zheng Tan squatted on one of the trees and watched Jiao Wei and the rest being reprimanded by the instructors. In fact, many of the instructors in the university's military training were about the same age as the freshmen. Some might even be younger. However, they were instructors after all. If they told you to stand in formation, you had to stand in formation. If they told you to stand in formation, you had to stand in formation obediently. Zheng Tan enjoyed watching from the tree. He stayed in the shade and there was wind blowing from time to time. It was quite comfortable. However, the people in the military training couldn't take it. Some of them even got heatstroke and had to be helped to the side to rest. However, compared to the people in the humanities department, there were more men here. Their physical fitness was slightly better. If they got heatstroke easily, they would be called sissy or delicate. Therefore, they had to hold it in. Even if it was uncomfortable, they had to endure it. Even if there weren't many girls here, there were still some. They didn't want to give others a bad impression before school officially started. Jiao Wei hadn't noticed Zheng Tan at first. It was only during the break that he saw him. He looked up and saw a familiar-looking black cat lying on a tree not far away. Everyone just thought it was interesting for a moment. After that, they didn't take it to heart. Who hadn't seen a cat before? There was nothing to be surprised about. However, Jiao Wei was different. He had a feeling that the black cat was up to something. The next day, Jiao Wei's premonition came true. The 4 cats squatted side by side on the top step. There was shade there and they could look down on the students in the military training. Jiao Wei's eyelids twitched. The 4 cats that he often saw in the courtyard were all here. They were indeed working together. However, because there were instructors watching from the side, Jiao Wei couldn't keep staring at them. When they were standing in military posture, they couldn't look sideways. Otherwise, they would be punished. The beginning of the military training was basically standing in military posture and marching. Compared to the later stages, it was easier. It was just that standing in military posture was a little uncomfortable. One stand could last for more than 15 minutes, and they couldn't wipe their sweat off. Depang seemed to especially like watching this. It didn't look as lazy as it usually did when it was watching the people in training. Sheriff didn't care. It did whatever the other 3 cats did. As for Huang, it had its eyes on a little doll hanging on the string of a water cup. The students in the military training, including their instructors, all placed the cups neatly on the steps. Some of them even wrote their names on them, afraid that someone would take the wrong one. The 4 cats were squatting side by side. Huang had been staring at the cup. Finally, it couldn't help but take 2 tentative steps forward. Seeing that no one came to stop it, it gathered its courage and moved forward. Then it bent its claws and played with the CS doll on the string of the cup. The good thing was that the cup was filled with water, so it wouldn't fall over after being played with twice. 1 paw wasn't enough. It started to play with the CS doll with both front paws. Sheriff saw that it was having fun and went over to join in the fun. Sometimes cats were like that. They wanted to play with everything they saw. If they couldn't move it, they would go up and rub it, moving everything that could move. Finally, the cup with the CS doll fell over. Keep your knees straight, hang your hands naturally, and stick close to the seam of your pants. On the other side, the little instructor looked at the students who were standing in the military posture and told them what to pay attention to. At the same time, he would randomly choose some students and walk behind them to kick their knees or push the arms of the students that were stuck to the seam of their pants. He wanted to see if they were following the instructions or just doing some superficial work. Instructor? Instructor? A student in the square formation said with a sad face, "My cup. When standing in the military posture, don't move casually, don't talk casually, and don't look sideways," the instructor said seriously. Instructor? Instructor? Another person whispered. Before you speak, you have to call for a report. If you want to move or talk, you have to call for a report first. The instructor still looked serious. Report. Instructor, your cup was pushed over. The instructor was speechless. Looking at the place where the cup was placed, the little instructor saw his cup rolling down the steps. The steps of the viewing platform were higher than normal steps, so every time the cup rolled down a step, it made a dong sound. As for the culprit, the cat that looked like a black police officer was raising one of its front paws, tilting its head, and looking at the cup that was rolling away. Then, its gaze landed on a cup next to it. The mouth of the cup was retracted, and the lid was sharp. It looked quite special. Then, it stretched out its paw and pushed the sharp lid. Dong, gurgle, gurgle, gurgle. Another cup rolled down the steps. There was one more person in the square formation with a constipated face. Zheng Tan turned his head. This has nothing to do with me. No matter what, the 4 cats were quite happy to see the military training of the students. During the day, Jing Tan watched them bask in the sun until they were about to collapse. At night, he watched them feed mosquitoes, and when they stood in the military posture, they couldn't even scratch the mosquitoes that bit them. They didn't always stare at the same square formation. Sometimes, they would watch a square formation in the morning, change to another one in the afternoon, and change to another one at night. Chapter 101. At night, although there was no moonlight and only a few stars could be seen, the military training area was lit up and the surroundings of the field were illuminated clearly. Rest here for 5 minutes. As soon as the instructor finished speaking, the group of people who were standing there in a military posture sat down on the ground like soft mud. Pa! The sound of a mosquito being swatted could be heard. Oh, my God and Buddha! A student in the same dormitory as Jiao Wei looked at the blood and mosquito corpses on his hands and shouted, "Do you think it was easy for me to produce so little blood? Why did it not let go of such a small amount of blood?" "Don't be disrespectful to Buddha," another roommate of Jiao Wei said. "Buddha is merciful. Just treat it as if I was farting." "You were farting just now. Don't think that I don't know just because you shouted so loudly. Do you want to be Buddha?" Jiao Wei asked his roommate with a smile. "No, Buddha is so tiring. I have to deliver all living beings from suffering. I just want to graduate successfully, find a job, find a wife, have a child, and live an ordinary and long life." The roommate was silent for a while and said, "I don't want to participate in such a high-end topic. Hey, didn't you say that taking vitamin B1 can prevent mosquito bites? Why did I still get bitten after taking it?" "It varies from person to person. It's better to go back and sprinkle some toilet water." At night, the military training area was filled with toilet water, essential balm, mosquito bites, and other anti-mosquito scents. However, the mosquitoes that grew in Tsinghua University were always fearless. At 9:30 p.m., the day's military training ended. Jiao Wei did not go back to the dormitory with his roommates. Instead, he walked towards the school gate. Every night, he would go to his small restaurant to take a look and help tidy up some things. He would only go back when the restaurant was closed. When he went back to the dormitory, he would also bring some supper for his roommates. Today, when Jiao Wei arrived at his small restaurant, although there was still some distance, he could see some people sitting inside. Usually, there would be no one around at this time. What was going on today? By the time Jiao Wei arrived at the entrance of the small restaurant, the people inside were already walking out. Among these people, the leader had a cigarette in his mouth. His hair was dyed yellow, and he looked a little sloppy. Jiao Wei's heart skipped a beat. He stopped paying attention to those people and rushed into the store. Seeing that his parents were fine, he heaved a sigh of relief. "What's wrong?" Jiao Wei asked. "Are those people here to pick a fight?" Jiao Wei had heard people say that some shop owners would hire people to cause trouble for other shops when they saw that business was doing well. That was why they were so anxious. "It's okay, don't worry." Jiao Wei's father waved his hand. No matter how much Jiao Wei asked, his parents refused to tell him anything. The next day, he had to talk to the person he had hired to help him out. Yesterday evening, after the rush hour, the number of people who came to the restaurant gradually decreased. Then, a few people who didn't seem to be easy to deal with came in and said that they wanted to pay the sanitary fee. However, Jiao Wei's family had already paid the sanitary fee, and there was a receipt. Obviously, in that case, the sanitary fee had a different meaning. Whether it was sanitary fee or management fee, and so on, in some cases it meant protection fee. When he was in a small town, Jiao Wei's family's shop was a little more formal, but they had also paid this kind of fee. It was just that Jiao Wei didn't know about it. Therefore, after Jiao Wei figured out the reason, he was very angry. When he went to find his parents, he told them that he would call the police if things didn't work out. Jiao Wei's father, on the other hand, was relatively calm. He even laughed and joked a little. Then he told Jiao Wei about the stakes involved. In fact, the people who did business in the surrounding area, whether it was small shops, street stalls, or students who set up night markets, had all encountered this kind of situation. He asked the surrounding shops to see how much they had paid. When he found out that his shop had paid a little more, he wasn't too angry. After all, his family was new here, and they were foreigners. It didn't matter if they didn't have a foundation. After talking, they paid a month's worth of fees. When Jiao Wei's parents were preparing to open a shop here, they were actually mentally prepared. They just didn't expect it to come so soon. The couple used to be honest people, but in the first 2 years of starting a business, they had some experience. Now, since Jiao Wei had already exposed this layer of paper, the couple shared some of their experiences with Jiao Wei. Originally, the couple thought that their child's job in the future would definitely be like those high-class white-collar workers on TV. He wouldn't have to face those who would cause trouble and collect protection fees. However, no matter what position it was, there were hidden rules. If you were strong, it would be fine. If you were just an ordinary person, it would be better to follow the rules. After listening to his parents' experiences, Jiao Wei didn't feel good. He wasn't stupid, and he knew that this was the truth. However, he was still a young man after all. After all, he was still hot-blooded. In the past, before he settled down to focus on his studies, he had also gotten into fights, quarreled with teachers, and flipped tables. Jiao Wei wasn't sure if he would fight with those people if he saw them again. After lunch in the afternoon, Jiao Wei sat at the entrance of the small restaurant and helped peel potatoes. The shop was full of people, so he didn't sit inside. It was more ventilated outside. Although his parents stopped him from doing it, Jiao Wei was stubborn. He wasn't afraid of being laughed at. What's wrong with helping his family peel potatoes? Who said that university students couldn't peel potatoes? It wasn't like he did anything shameful. As he was peeling, the owner of the shop next door came over. The shop next door mainly sold noodle food. It was owned by a young couple. During this period, the two families had become more familiar with each other. The owner of the shop next door also knew Jiao Wei. "I heard that someone came to your shop last night," the owner said. Yesterday, the noodle shop next door had something to do, so it was only open for half a day in the morning. The owner had heard about Jiao Wei's shop from the people around him. "Yes," Jiao Wei responded. He didn't want to talk about this topic. The strength of his hands peeling the potatoes increased. The boss smiled. "Don't be upset. Actually, everyone is the same. My family was the same. At that time, I had just graduated and didn't know the rules here. I even wanted to call the police, but my wife stopped me. She took the attitude of keeping the peace and handed over some things first. After that, we found someone and didn't meet them again." Seeing that Jiao Wei didn't say anything but his peeling of potatoes slowed down a lot, the owner knew that he was listening. The owner pointed at the hot pot shop opposite. When this shop opened not long ago, business was very good. After that, there was a period of time when 10 or so hooligans came to eat in the shop. At first, they still paid the bill. Later on, they started to cause trouble. In the end, they even asked how much money they wanted. The owner wasn't a pushover. Although he told those people to come the next day, he found someone at night. In the end, those hooligans didn't come the next day. They also didn't appear in his shop again. Also, the person who sold meat vegetable rice called a group of people over when he encountered such a situation. He was prepared to go all out. In the end, he was chased away by the police. However, those hooligans didn't look for him again. Hooligans also bullied the weak and feared the strong. If they knew that you were a tough nut to crack, they wouldn't come. If they couldn't be polite with them, they would be ruthless. This was how society was now. As a person, one had to be ruthless. At that time, there was no lack of hooligans who deliberately showed off their tattoos. They even put all kinds of steel pipes and knives in their cars. In the end, they still ended up like that. In the past, there was a period of severe crackdown, and those people disappeared for a long time. Now, they are gradually reappearing. However, in the past, they were mostly hooligans. Now that they have reappeared so quickly, it probably won't be easy to deal with them. If you know the police or the people in charge of this area, you can go over and take a look. It's necessary to spend some money in this area. After all, everyone wants to do business. There are also some shops in the surroundings that haven't been targeted. Even if the owners of those shops aren't locals, they have been here for many years and have some connections. I don't know if they have other connections. As for people like your family, you can first check out the situation and ask the nearby shops to find out who is in charge of this. Then you can pay a visit to the boss. If there is someone looking after you, of course, it will be fine. If this doesn't work, try other ways. Everything is difficult at the beginning. You just have to get through it. If there is really no other way, just hand it over. Otherwise, you will be the one who suffers. We came out to seek money, not to seek fame. But the situation is better than people. You also don't know when the next crackdown will be, so. The boss didn't finish his words. His wife called him, so he responded and hurried back. Jiao Wei was still sitting there, peeling potatoes absent-mindedly. It sounds so hot. The sudden voice next to him startled Jiao Wei. He turned around and saw Su Chu standing there eating a bowl of rice. "Senior Su, why don't you go to the shop and sit down to eat?" Jiao Wei said. Because of Jiao Pa, Su Chu and EXN knew Jiao Wei. Sometimes, when they were out of school, they would patronize his shop. "It's okay. There are a lot of people over there, so I came out to take a breather." I didn't expect to hear those words. If the boss didn't mention it, I wouldn't have known about it. In the past, when my classmates set up street stalls, they didn't mention it. I don't know if it's because they didn't encounter it or because they didn't want to talk about it. Su Chu said incoherently as he stuffed rice into his mouth. But I think that the clubs that are doing well don't need to rely on this method to survive. Those people are probably just small fries. You don't have to give them face. If you want to find someone to fight, count me in. Su Chu's big body was indeed quite oppressive. However, Jiao Wei wouldn't use such an extreme method. He couldn't afford to gamble. His parents were here and they were old. Jiao Wei didn't want anything to happen to them. Even if he won, what guarantee would he have? Then Senior Su, do you know people in this field? Jiao Wei didn't know how to describe it. Su Chu understood what he meant. However, he hadn't been here for long. Most of his life was spent in the laboratory, dormitory, and cafeteria. This was the first time he heard of such a thing. I only know my boss. Su Chu said helplessly. Jiao Wei shook his head. Don't bother Uncle Mingxing. He has already helped us a lot. Besides, he has 2 kids. Oh. Su Chu wiped his mouth. Then his eyes lit up. You know that Celestine guy, right? I know him, but I'm not familiar with him. He came here before the shop opened. After that, he hurriedly ordered takeout and left. Can he do it? I heard a little from my senior. You can give it a try. But if you want to find Celestine, you have to find Uncle Mingxing. I'm just telling you what I know. As for whether you believe me or not, it's up to you. Su Chu threw the empty disposable lunchbox into the trash bin and said, if you really want to ask Celestine for help, you don't have to go through my boss. What do you mean? My boss's cat. Chapter 102. Jiao Wei would never have thought that Su Chu would give such an answer. In fact, no normal person would think of such an answer. People who didn't know better would think that Su Chu was joking. After all, it was just a cat. How much could it help? Feed it? Seeing Jiao Wei's expression, Su Chu knew what he was thinking. He scratched his head. Hey, I'm just saying. Believe it or not, it's up to you. Why that cat? Jiao Wei squeezed out this sentence after thinking for a long time. How should I put it? My senior brother, EXIN, is definitely more familiar with the boss's family. That's why he knows more about the boss's family. Sometimes, my senior brother would tell me a little about the boss's family. Among them, he talked about the cat the most. It's the boss's baby, like Lord Xing, Miss Zhao, Professor Lan, and some other people. Although they usually have a good relationship with my boss, they are all related to the cat. Oh, there's another person, a professor who returned from overseas. He was a famous person in our school last semester, but he was kicked out. I heard from my senior that it's also related to the cat. Although many people didn't know the real reason for Renchang's case, people like EXIN who had a close relationship with the Jiao family could make some inferences. Hearing Su Chu's words, Jiao Wei stopped peeling potatoes. He didn't know many of the people that Su Chu mentioned, but he knew Professor Lan. Not long after he came here, he was taken to Professor Lan's small garden by the cat. It seemed like Su Chu was right. After all, compared to Associate Professor Jiao, those people were much more capable. Why would they care about an associate professor with no background? I heard a lot of things from my senior, so I don't know much about them. However, if you want to find Celestine, you can keep an eye on the cat first. Every time Celestine comes here, he only looks for the cat. There's one more thing. Maybe you don't believe me, but it was also because of that cat that I was able to work for the boss. Su Chu recalled that after he became Associate Professor Jiao's student, he once mentioned it to Xian. Xian analyzed it. Looking at the time, it was getting late. Su Chu took his leave first. He still had classes in the evening. Jiao Wei sped up and peeled the remaining potatoes. Then he tidied them up and rushed to the military training area. The evening training was about to begin. Jiao Wei had been thinking about Su Chu's words. When he saw the cat the next day, he felt a little awkward. Jing Tan had no idea what Jiao Wei was thinking. He, Fatty, and the others had recently moved to a different place to watch the military training. The people at Jiao Wei's training ground had started to guard against cats. Every time the cups were placed, there would be a few people sitting there. Once Zheng Tan and the others got close, those people would chase them away. Therefore, Zheng Tan and the others didn't just stay at one training area. Since there were so many places for military training, they would go and watch whenever they found a suitable place. It was quite interesting to see those people make a fool of themselves during training. There were also talent shows, singing and dancing during break time. The girls' performance was better. After school at noon, Zheng Tan and little Pomelo followed Jiao Wei to the small restaurant. They felt that someone was staring at them. When they turned around, they saw Jiao Wei looking away uncomfortably. What was going on? Zheng Tan was puzzled. Did Jiao Wei have something against him and a pang watching the military training? When they arrived at the small restaurant and ate at the folding table, Zheng Tan felt Jiao Wei's gaze from time to time. His appetite became worse. The man and the cat stared at each other for a few seconds. Jiao Wei looked away again. He felt that the cat's gaze was quite strange. It was indescribably strange. It was as if it wasn't a cat's gaze, but a human's. Jiao Wei had heard people say that some cats would express their thoughts. You could tell what they were thinking just by looking at their eyes. Although he couldn't tell what the cat was trying to express from its eyes, Jiao Wei at least knew that the cat wasn't in a good mood. When it was almost 11, the military training was coming to an end. The weather wasn't as bad as before. The pretty boys at the beginning of school were now a few shades darker. If you asked the 3rd and 4th year students what was the craziest thing during the military training, it would most likely be taking photos. When they were at their ugliest and darkest in university, the school took a photo of them, and this photo would be recorded in the system. It would appear on their various cards in the next 4 years, such as library cards, level 4 and 6 cards, and so on. At this time, the one-card system hadn't appeared in Tsinghua University yet. Therefore, a lot of the cards were separated. Every time they went to the library to borrow books, the auntie in charge of borrowing books would stare at the tanned faces on their cards and then stare at them for a long time. Especially those who were more concerned about their reputation. They would beat their chests and stomp their feet when they talked about their experiences. When this batch of new students were taking photos, Zheng Tan was squatting on a tree not far away and listening to the complaints of the students. Yawning, Zheng Tan gloated for a while. It was said that a white complexion could cover 100 ugliness. Now that most people were tanned, it wasn't possible to find a few good-looking girls. On the day of the military training review, Zheng Tan, De Pang, and the sheriff all went to take a look. Huang wasn't there. He had eaten something bad and was taken to Shaoguo to see a doctor. Even if he was here, Huang wasn't very interested in these things. After the review in the morning, they were sent off to the instructor in the afternoon. Regardless of how they were trained during the military training, under the influence of that kind of atmosphere, there were many people who were red-eyed. The relationship between men could be smashing bricks against each other one moment, and the next moment, they could smoke, drink, and talk about women together. Young people were impulsive easily. When the atmosphere was hot, it was different. Even Zheng Tan, who was squatting on the side, was a little affected. He recalled his own situation when he entered the university. It seemed like he didn't participate in the military training. He spent some money to go to the hospital to write a note, then asked the school leaders to sign it and left. Now it was a pity. Zheng Tan stretched his body and jumped down from the tree. He walked back home. Jiao Ma said they were having dumplings for dinner. After sending off the instructor, Jiao Wei and his roommates returned to their family's restaurant to help out. His roommates also came over to have a good meal. At the same time, they were thinking about what to do for the next 2 days. After the military training, they had 2 days of free time. Other than holding a class meeting, they had nothing else to do. So, they planned to go out and see the sights. Jiao Wei's parents were also helping him. No matter what, their son was only 18 or 19 years old. Young people should be more active. After giving Jiao Wei some money, Jiao Wei's father asked him to go out with his roommates and classmates to take a look at the city. Ever since he came to Chuhua City, he hadn't taken a good look at this new bustling metropolis. At night, when they returned to the dormitory, the few of them studied the famous sights in Chuhua City. Jiao Wei was staying in an 8-person room. Compared to the 4-person rooms, the accommodation was much cheaper. Initially, his parents did not agree as they were afraid their son would suffer. But Jiao Wei felt that other than sleeping, he did not have much time to stay in the dormitory. There was no need for him to stay in a 4-person room. Furthermore, even if it was an 8-person room, it was still much better than his high school's accommodation. At least his bed would not creak when he climbed up. At night, the few people in the dormitory chatted until late into the night. Although Jiao Wei responded a few times, his mind was still thinking about that matter. Seeing that September was almost over, would those people still come in October? Should he try to find that cat? But what should he say? Should he stand in front of a cat and say, "Hey, do me a favor, and I will give you fish to eat"? Others might think he was crazy. Sigh, this is not good. The next morning, Jiao Wei and his classmates went to the cafeteria for breakfast. Their plan was to go to each scenic spot according to their planned route after breakfast. They had even bought their bus cards and made a list of which bus to take to avoid getting lost. After breakfast, the few of them walked out. Jiao Wei saw a familiar black figure on the path not far from the cafeteria. "You guys go ahead first. Just wait for me at the bus stop. I have something to do and will catch up with you later," Jiao Wei said to his roommates hurriedly. "What's the matter? Do you need help?" "No need, you guys go ahead first." After saying that, Jiao Wei ran towards the path. Zheng Tan was preparing to walk around the forest. He had not been there for a long time. He wanted to climb some trees and exercise. She had eaten too much in the morning, so she didn't run now. She walked slowly in that direction until she heard familiar footsteps. "Black charcoal! Wait!" Jiao Wei shouted as he ran. He was afraid that the cat would disappear. Zheng Tan stopped and turned his head to look at the person running towards him. He did not know why Jiao Wei stopped him. Yesterday, this guy said that he wanted to go out with his classmates. Was he not leaving yet? After Jiao Wei ran over, he looked at the cat in front of him and did not know what to say. Looking around, although there were not many people on the path, there were still some students walking towards them. After thinking about it, Jiao Wei said tentatively, "Let's find a place where there is no one and talk." If he had not been in contact with this cat for a while, and if he had not heard Su Chu's story, Jiao Wei would never talk to a cat like this. Zheng Tan pulled his ear. He did not know what this guy wanted. However, since he was bored, he thought of a suitable place and walked towards it. After 2 steps, he stopped and looked at Jiao Wei, signaling him to follow. Jiao Wei scratched his nose, looked around, and then followed the cat in front of him. They did not walk too far. They came to a small flower bed. It was more secluded and there was no one around. They would not be heard if they spoke. Zheng Tan jumped onto the flower bed and looked at Jiao Wei, waiting for him to continue. Jiao Wei said this and that for a while, then asked, "Can you help me contact Celestine?" "Celestine? Why would he look for that guy?" Zheng Tan looked at Jiao Wei suspiciously. However, speaking of which, Wei Lung had not been here for a while. That fellow had said last time that he did not want to come because he did not want to see the freshman's military training. That would make him miss his military career, so if he wanted to come, he would wait until the military training was over. Looking at the time, the military training was over. Celestine should be coming over in 2 days. How about this? If Celestine comes to find you next time, can you bring him to my restaurant? Jiao Wei said hesitantly, then looked at the cat's reaction. Zheng Tan did not know why Jiao Wei was looking for Celestine, but if it was only like this, he could still help. So he raised a hand and looked at Jiao Wei. Jiao Wei did not understand the cat's meaning, so he did not move. Zheng Tan. Stupid. Walking over, Zheng Tan patted the back of Jiao Wei's hand. This was the way Zheng Tan, Jiao Yuan, and little Pomelo were used to. If they agreed, they would pat their paws. That was why they were doing this now. After patting, Zheng Tan jumped off the flower bed and walked towards the forest. Chapter 103. Celestine came the day after Zheng Tan agreed to help. Like before, Celestine first called Jiao Pa to inform him, then went to the eastern courtyard. He looked around and didn't find Zheng Tan, so he pressed the horn rhythmically. Zheng Tan was sleeping on a tree nearby. Hearing the horn, he jumped down from the tree and came to Celestine's car. However, unlike before, Zheng Tan didn't directly jump through the open window this time, but walked outside. Hey, Black Charcoal, where are you going? A star is going to the night building tonight. It's a rare opportunity, Celestine said as he drove to catch up with Zhang Zian. Zheng Tan trotted out of the school gate. This time, he didn't run directly through the grass, but directly on the sidewalk so that Celestine could see him. After leaving the school gate, he went to Jiao Wei's small restaurant. In the car, Celestine felt strange. What does the cat want to do? It wasn't easy to drive further into the street, so Celestine parked his car at a place in front of the school gate, then went to Jiao Wei's small restaurant. When he arrived, Zheng Tan was already squatting on a chair, waiting for him. Jiao Wei's parents were already familiar with each other, so they weren't too surprised to see Zheng Tan. However, when they saw Celestine, one of Jiao Wei's parents came to greet him warmly. After all, Celestine had helped them before, while the other went to call their son's dormitory. When Jiao Wei came back yesterday, he had told his parents that if the cat came with Celestine, they should call him immediately. If he wasn't in the dormitory, they should try to get Celestine's phone number, or directly tell Celestine his dormitory number. When Celestine was free, they could contact him. Although his parents didn't think it was a good idea to ask Celestine's phone number, since their son had asked, and if there was no one in the dormitory, they could only try. Fortunately, Jiao Wei and the others didn't go out today. They were too tired yesterday, so they all rested in the dormitory today. After receiving a call from the restaurant, Jiao Wei hurriedly took his bag and rushed to the restaurant. He was prepared to go to the restaurant to help at this time, but if Celestine came, Jiao Wei would bring more money, just in case. He had heard people say that when asking for help, one had to be polite. Even if Celestine didn't want it, there were others. Speaking of which, Jiao Wei was still thinking about this last night. He was still skeptical about the cat, but he didn't expect to receive news the next day. Sure enough, as Su Chu said, this cat's ability was really quite big. Celestine, who was sitting in the restaurant, was quite confused. Seeing that Jiao Wei's parents were a little embarrassed, he waved his hand. You two go ahead, don't worry about me. The students will be coming out soon. Celestine didn't plan to eat here, so he asked Jiao Wei's father to bring a glass of water. Black Charcoal, what's the matter? Why did you bother to ask me to come here? Celestine looked at the cat on the chair next to him and asked. Zheng Tan didn't answer. He didn't even know, so how could he answer Celestine? Jiao Wei ran over. Their dormitory was a little far from here, and the school bus always stopped on the way. Therefore, he didn't take the bus. It seemed like it was better to buy a bicycle. It would be more convenient to go in and out, and when the restaurant started to provide takeout, he could also help with the delivery. After drinking 2 glasses of water, Jiao Wei said to Celestine, Uncle Wei, there's something I need your help with. Don't say, "Oh, I feel like I'm a lot older." Celestine laughed and got up to leave. He knew that Jiao Wei's words couldn't be said here. He couldn't let his parents hear it. Jiao Wei said goodbye to his parents, took his bag, and followed Celestine out. Zheng Tan followed. He was also curious about what it was that needed Celestine's help. After leaving the restaurant, Jiao Wei was a little embarrassed and told Celestine about the situation in his restaurant. He hoped that Celestine could provide some information. At least, he would know who to give the gift to. Ever since the incident in his restaurant, Jiao Wei had asked some of his classmates and indirectly asked some of the other restaurants. He knew more things that outsiders didn't know. Sometimes, after paying the fee, it was not as if nothing had happened. Someone might come to find trouble. Jiao Wei was thinking of taking a step back now. As long as his parents could safely run this shop, it would be fine as long as they didn't cause any trouble. Besides, he was indeed a newcomer, so it was better to show some goodwill. Zheng Tan was beside him and pulled his ear. That's all it took. But it was true. It wasn't easy to be an ordinary person, especially an outsider who didn't have any background. That's the situation. So, I want to ask if you can give me some advice. Jiao Wei was a little nervous. After glancing at Celestine, he lowered his head. His hands that weren't carrying the bag were in his pockets. His palms were sweaty. Celestine didn't bother with the words, "Uncle," and "you," this time. He shook his head and said, "I'm not a local and I don't know much about this place." Jiao Wei was a little discouraged when he heard Celestine's words. But there was hope when he heard the last sentence. "But, it's possible to solve the problem, but it's a little overkill. Anyway, you don't have to worry about this. Those people probably won't come next month. If they come again, just call me." Celestine told Jiao Wei his phone number. Jiao Wei quickly took out a piece of paper and wrote it down. Zheng Tan thought that Celestine was probably going to find Senior Walnut or Yi Hao's people. One was white, the other was black. But no matter which side it was a waste of talent. Celestine had a good impression of Jiao Wei. From the few times they met, the young man was a good person. He was ambitious, but that wasn't a bad thing. As long as he had a good heart, it was fine. That, Uncle Wei? Jiao Wei didn't know how to express himself. He didn't expect Celestine to take over this matter. "Thank you. I'll treat you to a meal when the time comes." Wei Ling knew what Jiao Wei was thinking the moment he heard what Jiao Wei said. "Let's not talk about giving gifts and money. How about this, I'll eat at your place for free." "Of course. You can go whenever you want." Jiao Wei was happy to be able to solve the problem of his store. "Oh yeah, you don't have anything going on today, right?" Celestine asked. "Oh no." Jiao Wei quickly answered. Although he originally planned to help his family look after the store, he was afraid that Celestine had other things to do, especially things related to his store. "Then let's go together. I'll take you out to play today." "Young man, why are you always bored in school?" Celestine walked to the parking lot as he spoke. Jiao Wei went home and talked to his parents. Then he got into Celestine's car. "You can sit in the front passenger seat," Celestine said to Jiao Wei. "The back seat is for black charcoal. That guy will roll around in the back seat when he's bored. You'll be disliked if you sit there. Don't take up its space." Jiao Wei was speechless. He was not as good as a cat. "Black charcoal, Housie will bring the Monsignor over today," Celestine said as he drove. "That big cat?" Zheng Tan thought for a moment. Speaking of which, she hadn't seen that big cat for a while. She heard that after following Yi Hao, that cat was doing quite well. Master Tang the Seventh always showed off outside, showing off in front of everyone. Jiao Wei sat in the front passenger seat obediently and listened to Celestine talking to the cat in the back seat. Although the cat in the back seat did not reply, Celestine did not stop talking. Jiao Wei did not know anything about the Monsignor or the NB band. When they arrived at the night building, Jiao Wei was a little dumbfounded. Yesterday, he and his classmates passed by here. When they were on the bus, they saw the night building outside. They discussed it with a few of their roommates and wondered when they would have a chance to go inside. However, they heard that the cost of living there was extraordinarily high. Jiao Wei looked at his casual clothes that did not match the surroundings at all. At first, he felt a little awkward. However, when he saw Celestine, he calmed down a little because Celestine was also wearing casual clothes. Just like before, Celestine did not enter through the front door. Jiao Wei followed the man and the cat in front of him and entered through a side door. Not long after they entered Celestine's exclusive room, Yi Hao came in with the Monsignor. After the fall of the one above, Yi Hao did not need to hibernate anymore. He was so busy that no one could see him. Today, he happened to be free, so he came to the night building to rest and have a few drinks with Celestine. Zheng Tan looked around. Beside Yi Hao was Leopard. It was the same as usual. He did not see Ran Qi. He guessed that Ran Qi was now afraid of cats. It was different from the last time he saw it. The big cat now indeed had the demeanor of a Monsignor. Whether it was a CFH or a so-called super cat, it was still a cat. Cats were originally a little arrogant. In the past, the big cat lived a wandering life, so its fur was not so smooth. Now, not only was it smooth and shiny, it was also a little stronger. Its mental state was also good, and it was majestic. When it walked in, its tail was raised like a banner, and it was almost labeled tall, rich, and handsome. The Manxing was quite well behaved beside Yi Hao. After it came in, it squatted by the side and did not wander around. It was not like Zheng Tan, who would lie down on the sofa, jump to the coffee table to eat and drink, and then go to the bathroom. It was a lot of trouble. However, this was the first time that Jiao Wei had seen the Manxing. It was also the first time that he had seen such a big cat. Just now, he thought it was a dog. But when he looked again, what a big cat. This is the child of Black Charcoal's acquaintance. He is studying at Tsinghua University. Celestine introduced him to Yi Hao. Jiao Wei noticed that when Celestine introduced him, he said Black Charcoal's family, and not Associate Professor Jiao's family. This sentence was worth thinking about. Yi Hao said, "Oh," and did not ask any more questions. Instead, he started chatting with Celestine. Anyway, it was not a confidential topic. He was not afraid that Jiao Wei would hear it. Besides, since he was an acquaintance of Black Charcoal's family and was brought here by Celestine, he would not harm him. "By the way, how's the project going?" Celestine asked. Speaking of this, Yi Hao frowned. "I can't get in touch with him. His secretary always says that he is busy and we need to make an appointment. But there are so many people who want to make an appointment. The queue lasts for more than 10 days. Third Master Fang is very busy every day. It is normal for him to be busy. You are not the only one who receives this kind of treatment." Celestine took the bottle of erguote, clinked it with Yi Hao's, and drank 2 mouthfuls. Yi Hao glanced at the black cat, who was squatting on the side eating peanuts. "Yeah, Third Master Fang even gives the cat a climbing frame when he is busy every day." Celestine spat out a mouthful of wine. "What? Third Master Fang gave the cat that thing? He personally gave it to him?" "Yeah." This was the information that Yi Hao had found out after much effort. Jiao Wei, who was sitting on the side, lowered his head. The alpaca in his heart began to gallop. "It can't be what I think it is, right? It is indeed a relationship that goes through trials and tribulations together. Hauzi, you have to hold on tight to this cat's leg," Celestine said with a smile. He emphasized through trials and tribulations together. Zheng Tan pulled his ears, pretending that he did not understand the meaning of this word. He really did not want to think about those days. Although Celestine's words sounded like a joke, it was also reasonable. Yi Hao also planned to not talk about the project when he met the Third Master Fang. He planned to mention this cat first. Chapter 104. Jiao Wei had never thought of riding on a cat's coattails before. In fact, normal people wouldn't even think of riding on a cat's coattails, but now, Jiao Wei had really encountered it. Jiao Wei didn't know who the 2 people drinking sorghum wine with Celestine in such a high-end place were. He also didn't know the background of the third Uncle Fang they were talking about, but he was sure that the 2 were big shots, and the seemingly unreliable Third Master Fang was obviously of a higher status. Yi Hao only stayed for a while before leaving, and the Monsignor followed him. Zheng Tan didn't mind, since he wasn't familiar with the big cat, and he was just here to play. When the performance at the East Palace started, Zheng Tan leaned against the open window and looked down. As for Celestine, as usual, he started to fish for information. Previously, he was fishing for information from Ajin, and this time, he was fishing for information from Jiao Wei. The topic of conversation was still about the Third Master Fang. Celestine was really curious about the Third Master Fang's thoughts. After coming to Tsinghua City, he actually gave a cat tree to a cat when he was so busy. Unfortunately, Celestine was going to be disappointed this time. Jiao Wei had only met Third Uncle Fang for a short while, and didn't know anything else. Celestine looked at the cat lying there listening to the performance, and sighed. He wanted to help but couldn't even get some information. It wasn't just Yi Hao, but also Tian Yuan Genetics. A few partners had already asked Yuan Ziyi about the Third Master Fang. Celestine originally wanted to help, but unfortunately, he couldn't get any information. As for Associate Professor Jiao, it wasn't suitable for him to fish for information. That would only make people think that he was insatiable. And Associate Professor Jiao had no intention of getting close to them. It was lucky to be able to get close to the third Master Fong, and it was all thanks to the cat. The rest was up to him. Thinking about the fortune cat Yuan Zi kept in the office, Celestine wanted to laugh. It was a pure black cat that Yuan Zi had specially made. Regardless of whether he was in the scientific research industry or not, as a businessman, he was always particular about this. After taking a sip of wine, Celestine sighed in his heart. It really is a fortune cat. They didn't stay too late today. At around 9 o'clock, Celestine asked someone to drive Jingtan and Jiao Wei back to school. The driver had been here many times, and he was familiar with the road. He drove directly from the east gate of Tsinghua University and stopped at the gate of courtyard. Jiao Wei also got out of the car here. Looking at the black cat that jumped out of the car window and ran towards the family building, Jiao Wei felt that it was ridiculous. This cat's life was better than a human's. Who would believe this kind of thing? But if it could really solve the problem at home, he had to believe it. The moon in the night sky was quite bright. It would be Mid-Autumn Festival in 2 days. Jiao Wei looked up at the sky and walked towards the small restaurant. His parents would be worried if he didn't go back to the restaurant. When Zheng Tan returned to the Jiao family, he saw Jiao Yuan opening a box. Mooncakes? Looking at the calendar in the living room, he almost forgot. But unfortunately, Mid-Autumn Festival wasn't a national holiday yet. Jiao Yuan and little Pomelo were still in school. But Zheng Tan looked at the 2 boxes of mooncakes. According to Jiao Ma's style, she wouldn't buy these, waste of money. She should have bought some from a cake shop. So, it must have been sent by someone else. Whenever it was a holiday, the gift giving would begin. Whether it was in the government, the business world, or the workplace, there were all kinds of gift giving. Even though Mid-Autumn Festival wasn't a national holiday yet, it still gave many people the opportunity and excuse to give gifts. For example, Third Master Fong, Chairman Zhao, and the others were the targets of those people who wanted to send gifts to. The 2 boxes in front of him were sent by Zhao Le last night. There were originally 3 boxes. Jiao Pa took 1 box to the courtyard and gave some to Exan and Su Chu. As they had already eaten dinner, Jiao Ma only allowed Jiao Yuan to eat 1. Jiao Yuan could bring another one tomorrow morning. If he felt hungry after 2 classes, he could take it out to eat. Mum, Black Charcoal also wants some. How many can I give it? Jiao Yuan shouted to Jiao Ma in the room. Each of you can only eat 1. Black Charcoal can only eat 1. Black Charcoal has gained weight recently. Jiao Ma, who was busy answering the phone, said. She then closed the door and continued to make calls. Little Pomelo opened an egg yolk for Zheng Tan. Zheng Tan was eating it on the sofa, but his ears were perked up. He was listening to the movements in the bedroom. Why was it so secretive when making a phone call? Did she not want the 2 kids to know? Jiao Yuan and little Pomelo could not hear the sound of the phone call, but Zheng Tan could. Although it was not very clear, he could at least catch a few keywords. It seemed to be related to the upcoming National Day holiday and buying a car. Zheng Tan moved his ears and stopped eating the mooncake. He listened carefully to the sounds in the room. Unfortunately, Jiao Yuan was too talkative. Zheng Tan simply put down the mooncake and went to the door. He leaned close to the door and listened carefully. Seeing Zheng Tan's actions, the 2 kids who were eating mooncakes looked at each other. They put down the mooncakes in their hands and tiptoed to the door. They pressed their ears against the door to listen. Jiao Ma, who was talking on the phone, would never think that someone was eavesdropping at the door. She was still chatting happily. When the Jiao Pa came back, he saw the 2 kids standing on both sides of the door with their ears pressed against the door. There was also a cat below them. The cat's tail was curling from time to time, as if it was thinking about something. Seeing that the Jiao Pa came back, Jiao Yuan was not embarrassed at all. Instead, he asked the Jiao Pa excitedly, "Are we going to buy a car?" The Jiao Pa was amused. It turned out that the kid was eavesdropping because of this. "I'm thinking about it, but I haven't decided yet." Although he already had a plan, the Jiao Pa did not say too much. He did not want to disappoint the two kids if there were any changes. After all, Jiao Yuan and little Pomelo were still kids. When they heard the Jiao Pa's words, they did not think too much about it. As long as there was a possibility, it was fine. They went back to the sofa and sat down, eating their unfinished mooncakes while watching TV. After eating, take a shower and go to bed. Don't watch TV too late. The Jiao Pa said to the two kids. When he passed by Zheng Tan, he stretched out his finger and poked Zheng Tan's forehead. Go to bed early. Also, exercise more recently. Look at you. You've gained weight. Zheng Tan pulled his ears and went to little Pomelo's room to look at himself in the mirror. He didn't gain much weight. Thinking back on his life, it seemed that other than picking up little Pomelo, he only ate, slept, and watched the military training. As for food, he ate 3 meals a day with the Jiao family. He also ate some other food intermittently. Although he was a little picky, he had a wide range of food compared to other cats. Besides, he did not eat much, so there were some signs of him gaining weight. Would he become as fat as Depang after a while? Regardless of whether he gained weight or not, Zheng Tan picked up the running exercise that he had thrown away for a long time the next day. Old Madame Zhai came back after dancing. She was still waving the bright red woolen fan in her hand. When she saw Zheng Tan trotting, she shouted, "Yo, Black Charcoal, I haven't seen you running for a long time." An old lady next to old Madame Zhai also said, "That cat looks better than before." The so-called better meant that the cat was fatter. It was just that people here felt that it was better to raise a fatter pet. If the cat was too thin, people would think that you were mistreating your pet. Just like in the courtyard in the Eastern District, Depang was recognized as the best cat. Most people's first words when they saw Depang were, "This cat is really well raised." Back then, Depang's old lady was worried that the cat might have some diseases due to its fatness. She went to check on it. In the end, other than being fatter, there were no major problems. Everyone felt that it was quite strange that the cat could run and jump. No matter what, Zheng Tan decided to pick up the running exercise that he had put down for a long time. Anyway, the weather was gradually getting colder. It would not be as hot as it was in the summer. Recently, there were more people in the school square. The clubs were recruiting new members, so it was more lively. The members of the Roller Skating Association were in a formation, skating in circles around the school's main road. Some words were tied to their arms, which could be used to form publicity slogans. The equipment was also neat. When the group of people skated in front of them, it looked quite cool. It also satisfied some people's desire to show off. Therefore, many new students would go to the Roller Skating Association in the square to ask about the situation. There were also members of the Bicycle Association. A group of people rode flashy bicycles. Sometimes they held billboards, sometimes they shouted slogans, and rode around the school. In the square, where the association was, there were some photos. They were all taken during the holidays when they went out to travel by bicycle. There were also some slogans such as, "Ride the World," on them, which satisfied some people's desire to go out by bicycle during the National Day holiday. Sometimes, you could see some students dressed up like anime characters. They were from the Anime and Manga Association. Chuhua City would sometimes hold some anime and manga fairs, and there would be cosplay. They would also participate, so every year, during the recruitment of new members in anime and manga fairs, you could see those eye-catching cosplayers on campus. Zheng Tan saw this when he was running. There were also many clubs that only advertised in the square. Zheng Tan stood in the distance and watched for a while. There were people in costumes, dancing skirts, and even people in martial arts and taekwondo costumes. Those were all very popular clubs. Zheng Tan had not participated in such activities when he was in university. At that time, he did not seem to pay attention to these things. Most of the time, he was not in school. He only learned about many activities that he would encounter in university after coming here. Zheng Tan also saw Jiao Wei. It was not that Zheng Tan's eyesight was too good. He just glanced at some of the more unpopular clubs on the periphery. There were not many people there. There was only Jiao Wei in one of the clubs. However, because of the angle, Zheng Tan could not see what club it was, and he was not very interested. After jogging for a while, when he passed by the Institute of Biological Sciences, He ran to the tree in front of Jiao Pa's office window to take a look. There was no one in the office. Xian and Su Chu were not there either. They were probably busy with experiments. Zheng Tan did not stay for long. He returned to the east courtyard and was about to go home to sleep for a while. He did not expect to see Third Master Fang's car parked downstairs. At this moment, Third Master Fang was leaning against the car door and taking out his phone. When he saw Zheng Tan, Third Master Fang was very happy. "Hey, I was just about to call your cat father. There's no one in your house. Help me open the door." Third Master Fang put away his phone again. Zheng Tan looked at him suspiciously. Didn't Celestine and Yi Hao say that this guy was very busy every day? Why did he have time to come here now? He jumped up and swiped his card. He took the key from Depang's house. After he came back from wandering, Zheng Tan felt that it was too troublesome to hide the key in the tree. So he hid it in a place on Depang's balcony. Anyway, Depang usually squatted on the balcony to look after the house. If Depang went to visit relatives, Zheng Tan would hide the key in the tree. The Third Master Fang was not too surprised that Zheng Tan could open the door by himself. He had already known about it from Jiao Pa. When he was wandering, he even knew that this cat could turn on the hot water and use the hairdryer by himself. This time, Third Master Fang brought a few boxes of hardcover mooncakes. He was going back to Beijing for the Mid-Autumn Festival, but there were too many people who gave him gifts. He could not eat them all. After he gave some to his subordinates, Third Master Fang sent some to the Jiao family. After he sent them, he would drive back to Beijing. After the Third Master Fang put down the boxes, he called the Jiao Pa. After the call, Third Master Fang said to Zheng Tan, who was lying lazily on the sofa, "Your cat father seems to be buying a car." Although he did not say, "I heard some people talking over there." Chapter 105. After the Third Master Fang left, Zheng Tan leaned on the balcony and stared downstairs. When a car drove in, he craned his neck to take a look. When little Pomelo and the others finished school, Zheng Tan did not see the car he expected. He had no choice but to go to the affiliated to Renmin University of China to pick up the kids. At noon, the Jiao Pa had already called the people at the small restaurant to tell them that he would not be coming over for lunch. Zheng Tan guessed that the Jiao Pa was probably still busy with the car. However, it was hard for Associate Professor Jiao to go out to look for cars during working hours. He probably left the work at hand to Xin or Su Chu. Although he did not see the Jiao Pa in the morning, Zheng Tan did not go out in the afternoon. He climbed a few trees in the courtyard to play for a while. Then he found a tree and lay down on it to sleep. It was almost 5 o'clock when he finally saw the Jiao Pa come back. However, he walked into the courtyard alone. Zheng Tan looked behind the Jiao Pa and did not see the car. He looked at the Jiao Pa in confusion. Where was the car? Unfortunately, the Jiao Pa did not answer his questions. Zheng Tan decided to eavesdrop tonight. Usually, after the two kids went to bed, the Jiao Pa and Jiao Ma would talk about something. After dinner, Zheng Tan accompanied the two kids to watch TV until 9 o'clock. When the two kids went to bed, he jumped out of bed and prepared to eavesdrop. The lights in little Pomelo's room were off, but little Pomelo was still awake. When she heard Zheng Tan's movements, little Pomelo took out a small flashlight from under her pillow. "Black charcoal, where are you going?" Zheng Tan wagged his tail and looked at the door lock. Little Pomelo got up and opened the door for Zheng Tan in her slippers. She moved gently and tried not to make the door lock make a sound. She opened the door a small gap, just enough for Zheng Tan to go out. They had done this many times. Zheng Tan came to the bedroom door and squatted down. He tilted his head and pressed his ear against the bedroom door, while little Pomelo lay back down on the bed. 10 minutes later, Zheng Tan crawled back into bed. He was in a good mood. Jiao Pa had indeed bought a car. He was going to pick it up tomorrow. There were probably still some paperwork to be done. Other than the car, Jiao Pa and Jiao Ma mainly talked about the National Day holiday. They had already received an invitation to Jiao Pa's younger sister's 10th birthday party. The couple would bring their child to the party and drive their new car. They would also bring Zheng Tan along. In their hometown, a child's 10th birthday party was a big event, and parents paid more attention to it. Since it happened to be a holiday, Jiao Pa and Jiao Ma would definitely not refuse. It was a good opportunity to go back to their hometown. Other than the car, they talked about the trivial things between their relatives. Zheng Tan was not interested in listening. After he heard the news he wanted, he went back happily. However, because of this, Zheng Tan missed the key part of the Jiao Pa and Jiao Ma's discussion. At least for Zheng Tan, it was quite important. Many people would leave their pets at the pet center if they were going on a long trip. The National Day holiday was only a few days, and it was not a big deal to leave their pets at the pet center. Everyone did that. However, Zheng Tan was a special case. Jiao Ma did not want to leave Zheng Tan alone in the pet center. She also did not trust Xiaogua and the others to take care of it. What if it went missing? Therefore, it was better to take care of it herself. After all, her cat was very obedient. However, there was another issue that was troublesome. Jiao Pa's sister lived in the city of their hometown. It was a private room with 3 floors. It was quite spacious, and there would probably be more guests. Although the banquet was in a hotel, other than the banquet, some relatives and friends would also rest at home. There were many people, and there were many children. Naughty children who did not know anything and were very destructive were the nemesis of pets. Therefore, Jiao Ma was a little worried that there would be a conflict. Although her cat had not scratched people, what if some naughty child annoyed her cat and got scratched? Would there be a fight? It's okay. They have a pet dog and a cat. They get along well with the children. Besides, there are adults watching over them. Our cat is smart. There won't be any conflict, Jiao Pa said. I'm still worried. Let black charcoal follow little Pomelo. I'll just say hello to the people over there. The next day, Jiao Pa finally drove the car back before dinner. It was a silver gray, very ordinary family car. It was not as impressive as Yuan Zi's car, nor was it as impressive as Third Master Feng's car. However, Zheng Tan and the 2 children were very happy. No matter how high-end the car was, it was still someone else's car. It was like a magnificent palace, but it was not your home. It did not feel like your home. As the boss, Yuan Zi definitely needed a good car to show his face. Third Master Feng was even more so. 4 Laps was already a low-key car among all the cars he owned. However, for the Jiao family, such an ordinary family car was enough. Zheng Tan knew that although Jiao Pa had less money now, he did not have much to spend. The reason why he was in a hurry to buy a car was that it was more convenient to drive his own car when he went back to his hometown. Also, he wanted to let Jiao Ma familiarize herself with the car as soon as possible. When he went abroad, Jiao Ma would be able to use the car here. She would not need to ride an electric scooter to go anywhere. It was dangerous to take 2 children and a cat with her. If she drove, it would save her a lot of trouble. It was also more convenient on rainy days. If Zheng Tan was asked to evaluate this car in the past, he probably would not like it. However, Zheng Tan was very happy now. After jumping in through the window, he began to look left and right. He felt that the new car did not smell right. It was too strange. Suddenly, he remembered what Huang and the sheriff did when they marked the territory. It was impossible to mark it with urine. If that was the case, Zheng Tan would not be able to get in the car in the future. In addition to the urine mark, there was also the smell of rubbing. Cats had scent-secreting glands near their whiskers and ears. By rubbing and rubbing, they spread their smell to the surrounding objects. Therefore, Zheng Tan learned from Huang and rubbed on the car seat and other places. Then he sniffed. It did not seem to work. He rubbed again and rubbed again. People would feel more at ease in an environment with familiar smells. Even if there were always smelly socks or a bucket of unwashed clothes in the room, as long as he could tolerate it and get used to it, it would be fine. If he was suddenly put into a very clean room without any other smells, he would feel uncomfortable for a while. Not knowing the smell after smelling it for a long time, physiologically speaking, it was a type of olfactory adaptation. However, on the other hand, it also showed a philosophical problem of my territory, my smelly. Therefore, Zheng Tan rubbed on the car very intensely and felt at ease. The Jiao Pa looked at his cat rubbing around in the car. He thought about it and decided to let him do as he pleased. Other than his family, no other family would let their pets rub around in a new car. The interior of the car was not decorated with anything else, so it was rather monotonous. When he bought the car, he received a pendant that was said to have been blessed. The Jiao Pa always felt that it was an eyesore, so he took it off. When he went back to his hometown, he would ask the old lady to get another one done. The Jiaopa did not believe that other people would give similar things as gifts. However, after the Jiao Yuan and little Pomelo came back, the car changed. The Jiaoma also embroidered a peace pendant. Little Pomelo and Jiao Yuan also put a few dolls in the car. It looked a little livelier. After rubbing around in the car, Zheng Tan felt that it was about time, so he rolled around in the car seat before getting out. Because of the car, Zheng Tan was especially looking forward to going on a trip on the 11th. No matter where he went, it would be a new experience. Because there would be a lot of people traveling on the first day of the holiday, the Jiaopa decided to set off on the 30th of September. Because they had started preparing a few days in advance, they did not feel rushed when they set off. After the two kids finished school, the Jiaoma and Jiaopa came back. They had dinner and set off at 7 o'clock. Their destination this time was Xingyang, where their hometown was. From Chuhua City to Xingyang, it was about a 2-hour drive on the highway. The two elders had already been told that Grandpa Jiao had come from the village yesterday to clean the house in town. Although they had a house in town, the two elders of the Jiao family always liked to stay in the village. They were familiar with the place. From the east side of the village to the west side, they knew everyone there. When they played mahjong, they could be there anytime. It was not too boring. Occasionally, they would stay in town for a while and hang out with some relatives who had moved to town. They arrived at their house after 9 o'clock. The two elders were already waiting at the door with the lights on. Grandpa Jiao was quite happy to greet his grandson, whom he had not seen for a long time. However, the first thing that came out was a black cat. "Why did you bring it here?" Chapter 106. Even though Grandpa Jiao was a little unhappy with the fact that the Jiaopa had brought the cat with them, he didn't want to find fault with Zheng Tan since it was already late. He went back to tidy up the room with his wife. This house in town was also a private house. It wasn't an apartment building, so it was relatively free. Because of the location, it was much more spacious. No wonder Grandpa Jiao didn't want to go to Chuhua City. After tidying up 2 rooms, one for the Jiaopa and Jiao Yuan, and the other for the Jiaoma and little Pomelo, Zheng Tan thought for a while and ignored the old sofa cushions and a simple cat bed that Grandpa Jiao had made out of paper boxes. He ran into the Jiaoma and little Pomelo's room. Because of Zheng Tan's presence, Grandpa Jiao covered the fish that he had just bought with something to prevent the cat from eating it. The next day, Grandma Jiao woke up early and went out to buy breakfast. Many of the local specialties couldn't be found in Chuhua City. Since it was rare for her son and grandson to come back, Grandma Jiao bought a lot of food. However, Zheng Tan didn't get any. During breakfast, Jiaopa and the other 3 shared some for him. Grandpa Jiao stared at them. "This cat is like this because you guys spoiled it." Grandma Jiao didn't say anything, but it seemed like she supported her husband's words. Jiaopa just smiled and didn't say anything. If he said anything at this time, Grandpa Jiao would only talk more. Zheng Tan ate 2 mouthfuls and looked up at Grandpa Jiao. He wagged his tail slowly. "Old man, just stare. There's nothing you can do about it." Grandpa Jiao picked 2 mouthfuls of rice noodles and put down his chopsticks. He clutched his chest and said, "My stomach hurts." Everyone was speechless. "So your stomach is where your heart is. Eat your food. Why are you angry with a cat?" Grandma Jiao glanced at him. Grandpa Jiao snorted and stopped talking. He picked up his chopsticks again. "By the way, Mingxing, go and see Yao Hong after breakfast." "She's in the hospital," the old lady said. "What's going on?" Jiaopa asked in shock. Yao Hong was Jiaopa's cousin. Jiaopa remembered that she was quite healthy. Ever since his cousin's husband became successful in the business world, his cousin Yao Hong also became a rich madam. She usually took good care of herself. How did she end up in the hospital? The old lady sighed. "I heard that it was because of diet pills, but it's just a guess. The hospital hasn't come to a conclusion yet. We don't know what happened." They spoke in a dialect, and Zheng Tan had heard a little of it before. Although he didn't understand it completely, he could understand a part of it. Hearing the old lady's words, Zheng Tan sighed in his heart. "TSK, eating diet pills can also get me into the hospital." Jiaopa thought for a moment and nodded. "I got it. But some diet pills aren't very effective." Zheng Tan looked up at the Jiaopa. He felt that the Jiaopa must have guessed the reason, but it wasn't appropriate to say it here, so he just answered the old lady's question briefly. The Jiaopa's 10th birthday party was tomorrow. Today, the Jiaopa decided to let the two children rest at home first. They went to the hospital to visit their cousin, and the old lady went out with them. Thus, only the two children, an old man, and a cat were left at home. The two children were watching TV. Grandpa Jiao wandered around and pulled a piece of green foxtail grass out of nowhere to disturb Zheng Tan, who was resting on the sofa. Zheng Tan didn't want to bother with the old man, but the old man was too enthusiastic. Zheng Tan grabbed the piece of green foxtail grass with his paw, tore it apart, and threw it aside. Then he ran to the Jiao Yuan and little Pomelo and lay down between them. He didn't believe that the old man would be so bored as to bother his grandson. Grandpa Jiao looked at the two children and then at the cat in the middle. He snorted and said a few words to the Jiao Yuan. Then, he dragged a chair over and sat there to watch cartoons with the two children. He was quite happy. In the afternoon, after the Jiaopa and Jiaoma came back, they were talking in the room. Zheng Tan pricked up his ears and eavesdropped. It's probably because of the weight loss medicine. I've asked around and confirmed that Sister Hong bought the famous weight loss medicine that's currently very popular. As for that medicine, I've heard from the medical school that the main ingredient in it is sibutramine hydrochloride. There has always been a controversy abroad. Moreover, 2 years ago, the European side launched a Scout sibutramine cardiovascular endpoint trial project. The project is still ongoing, but I've heard that there are deaths and cardiovascular events. The official conclusion doesn't seem to be out yet, so we'll have to wait for a few years. However, I think that warnings will start to come out next year. As for the situation in China, I'm not sure. Hong Jie still refuses to admit it. Jiaoma sighed. Before this, Hong Jie's usual symptoms were similar to the side effects of the pills. She wants to save face and refuses to admit it. However, she should have listened to what I said to her today. She should be more careful in the coming days. Hey, tell me more about the famous diet pills. How is the research going abroad? Jiaoma was quite interested in this. Women always want to maintain a good figure. However, as they get older, they tend to put on weight easily, especially Jiaopa's cousin. After she became successful, she had to attend more social events. It was easy for her to put on weight. In order not to lose face, she took the diet pills hard. Zheng Tan listened to the Jiaopa and Jiaoma's conversation. Zheng Tan remembered that the diet pills they were talking about were really popular for a long time. Many celebrities were endorsing the pills. However, after a few years, he didn't hear about it anymore. He didn't know what happened. Now, it seems that the pills were banned just like what Jiaopa had predicted. Zheng Tan listened for a while with the mentality of listening to a story and gossip. He was quite interested in this. However, Zheng Tan's good mood was hit to the bottom at night. After listening to Jiaoma's story again, Zheng Tan was sure that disaster was coming for him. Naughty kids. He would have to face a bunch of naughty kids tomorrow. What if he suddenly didn't want to go? However, the family members were all out. Jiaoma was probably worried about leaving Zheng Tan alone in the house. She had prepared the bag and was just waiting for Zheng Tan tomorrow. At night, she even let Zheng Tan take a good bath, brush his fur, and blow dry his fur. After he was clean, she put the cat tag on him. However, when he thought about what he had to face, Zheng Tan couldn't feel happy. What the F***CK? On October 2nd, the old man and the old lady wore new clothes. Jiao Yuan and little Pomelo were dressed up by Jiaoma. Besides celebrating the birthday of the birthday girl, everyone had to talk about their children. This was the rule of society. When they were young, they would compare their grades. When they grew up, they would compare their family background. When they got married, they would compare their children. After that, it was a new cycle. Jiao Yuan and little Pomelo were still young and didn't understand. However, Jiaopa and Jiaoma were already mentally prepared. Therefore, they bought new clothes for the two children in advance and dressed them up appropriately. They even prepared some speeches for the social events. As for Zheng Tan, he was squatting inside the bag that Mama Jiao was carrying. His ears were pulled back into the shape of an airplane, and his face was filled with displeasure. At this time, the space in the car was much smaller. Jiao Ma sat in the front passenger seat. The old couple and Jiao Yuan sat in the back seat. Little Pomelo was in the old lady's arms. Zheng Tan seemed a little nervous when he saw little Pomelo's expression. Well, they were not familiar with each other. If they were from the Gu family, they would know a few people. However, now they were all from the Jiao family. However, this also saved them a lot of trouble. Many people from the Gu family knew that little Pomelo was thrown back to China by her mother. After that, she was alone abroad and didn't care about the children. Because of this, those aunties would nag for a long time. Therefore, it was good that they didn't meet the Gu family. More than 20 minutes later, the Jiaopa's car stopped in front of a 3-story residential house. There were already several cars parked there. There were many people around. Jiaoma got out of the car first with the 2 children. The Jiaopa parked the car in a hotel not far away. Anyway, the birthday party would be held there. The parking lot there was big and it was not as crowded as here. Moreover, when there were more children, accidents like car accidents often happened. Therefore, in order to avoid damage the new car, the Jiaopa drove it away. Jiaoma carried her bag in one hand and held little Pomelo's hand in the other. As for Jiao Yuan, he knew many people around. Even if they hadn't seen each other for more than a year, they would be familiar with each other after playing with each other for a while. They were all teenagers. The Jiaoma couldn't keep an eye on him all the time. Anyway, the Jiao Yuan didn't like to play with those children in kindergarten. Little Pomelo was a little reserved. She pursed her lips and didn't talk much. When the Jiaoma greeted others, she would occasionally ask her to greet others. The traditional greeting was too complicated. Little Pomelo probably couldn't understand it. Little Pomelo also didn't understand a lot of the dialects here. She had been exposed to Mandarin and English since she was young. However, with the Jiaoma by her side, she didn't have to worry too much. Hey, why did you bring the cat here? An auntie looked at Zheng Tan in the Jiaoma's bag and laughed. This is our family's treasure. We don't feel safe leaving it in Chuhua City, so we brought it here. It is very obedient and won't run around. The Jiaoma said to the person. There was a 7 or 8-year-old child standing next to the auntie. He looked at the cat's head in the bag and bit his finger. Then he slowly moved over and reached out his hand to pull Zheng Tan's beard. Zheng Tan retracted his head back into the bag. After going upstairs, the Jiaoma came to a room. There were some children in the room. Most of them were girls. The boys were running around outside and couldn't stay idle. After the Jiaoma introduced the children, she asked little Pomelo to stay here and watch some DVDs with the children. The Jiaoma still had to greet some people. There was a girl in her teens. She was probably in junior high school. She was responsible for taking care of the children. She smiled and gave little Pomelo a cushion for her to sit on. She also handed her a glass of juice. The floor of the room was covered with foam mats. The others took the mats and sat directly on the floor. Next to them, there was a little kid crawling on the foam mats. He probably didn't know how to walk yet, but he crawled with strength. Moreover, he was drooling as he crawled. Zheng Tan came out of the bag and sat next to little Pomelo. At first, a few children came over to disturb Zheng Tan, but gradually, everyone went to watch the DVDs. Zheng Tan was closing his eyes and taking a nap when he suddenly felt a smell of milk approaching. He opened his eyes and saw the little kid sitting and staring at him. He even called out, "Ah," twice. His words were very vague, so Zheng Tan couldn't make out what he was saying. "Yes." Zheng Tan pulled his ear. "Ka ka ka." The little kid laughed a few times and began to speak vaguely again. He was laughing and drooling as he crawled over. Seeing the little kid crawling over, Zheng Tan felt a headache. He got up and walked away. The little kid was addicted to following him. He was crawling with vigor. Chapter 107. There was a window next to the cabinet. Zheng Tan looked out from the window and saw Jiao Yuan and a few other kids around his age playing and running around. Looking at the room, the contrast was stark. It had to be said that girls were quieter than boys. At least the girls in this room were quite quiet. As for the only boy, who was not even a year old, Zheng Tan directly ignored him and let him drool and mumble to himself. But not long after, an old lady came in and took the little boy away. She was probably his grandmother. Without the noise of the little boy, Zheng Tan did not jump down from the cabinet. He just squatted on the cabinet and hoped that time would pass faster. Little Pomelo was no longer worried when she saw Zheng Tan squatting on top of the cupboard. She started to watch the rented cartoon with the other girls. Those were the kind that girls liked to watch. Zheng Tan could not focus on it and could only squat on the cabinet and take a nap. According to the customs of this place, there were 2 banquets for the 10th birthday, one in the afternoon and one in the evening. Actually, it was the 10th birthday banquet. According to the time of birth, it was only 9 years old. But this was the custom. Zheng Tan was too lazy to bother about it. Now he was thinking, little Pomelo seemed to be almost 9 years old. When the time came, would there be a 10th birthday banquet in Chuhua City? But little Pomelo's irresponsible mother was always abroad. And, when the time came, he would go to 3rd Master Fang's Shaoguang Hotel to celebrate little Pomelo's birthday. Finally, at noon, the Jiaoma came to take little Pomelo away. Zheng Tan jumped back into the bag and was carried away by the Jiaoma. The hotel was not far away. The group walked directly there. This time, Zheng Tan didn't enter the hotel. He stayed in the Jiaopa's car. Little Pomelo wanted to take Zheng Tan to the hotel, but when the Jiaopa asked Zheng Tan to choose, Zheng Tan jumped into the car. He looked around and saw that there were a lot of children going in with the Jiao Yuan. He did not want to squeeze in there. At that time, there would be a lot of people at the table, and there would be a lot of naughty children around. They would be surrounded by people they did not know. It was better to wait until the Jiaopa and the others had eaten before bringing food over. Although it was a little boring to stay in the car, it was still better than going over there to face the brats and all kinds of strangers. It was too noisy there. When he woke up, the Jiaopa had already brought a bowl over. After delivering the food, the Jiaopa immediately turned back. There were still people who wanted to talk to him. Zheng Tan was not used to the hotel's food. Fortunately, it was still warm, as if it had just been reheated. He forced himself to eat to fill his stomach. When he heard that the children would be going to the amusement park later, Zheng Tan decided to stay in the car. Anyway, with the current amusement facilities and the condition of this small place, there was probably nothing fun to do. He was an adult and had no interest in playing with the children. After eating, Zheng Tan stayed in the back seat for a while. He felt a little bored and wanted to stretch his body. He put his paws on the car window and stretched. When he stretched halfway and looked out the window, he saw a large group of naughty children coming out of the hotel entrance. They were walking towards him. There were boys and girls, ranging from 3-year-olds to children about the same age as the Jiao Yuan. A group of people were walking towards him. A few of the children were holding balloons in their hands. They used the balloons to hit their parents who were hugging them. The parents were happy and smiled as they put their faces forward for the balloons to hit. Zheng Tan felt a pain in his bones. When he saw these naughty children, he felt that his cat life was bleak. Because there were too many children going to the amusement park, everyone split up. Those who had cars each took a few children. In the end, the extra children were all chartered to go to the amusement park. As a result, there were 2 children in the Jiaopa's car that he did not know. One of them sat in the front passenger seat. Jiaoma sat in the back with little Pomelo in her arms. There was also Jiao Yuan and another boy around 10 years old that Zheng Tan did not know. The child was also holding a balloon in his hand. When he saw Zheng Tan, he hit Zheng Tan with the balloon. No matter how Jiao Yuan and little Pomelo protested, and no matter what Jiaoma said, he did not know his place. Zheng Tan could not stand it anymore. He raised his paw and broke the balloon. In the end, it was the Jiaopa who spoke that the child calmed down for a while. However, it was only for a while. When he sat there, his eyes were still looking at Zheng Tan. Look at the F***CK. Zheng Tan was very unhappy. The amusement park in this city was about a 20-minute drive from here. Every 5 minutes, the Jiaopa had to reprimand the child. Otherwise, the child would spin around like a spinning top. He even reached out to poke Zheng Tan and tried to pull Zheng Tan's tail. When he failed, he tried to pull his ears and beard. However, he was slapped away by Zheng Tan. Zhang Zian could not avoid it either. The car was so small. The naughty child was poking at him even though there was a person between them. Zheng Tan could not run in front and interfere with the Jiaopa's driving. Besides, there was another child in front. Who knew if the one in front would be more difficult to deal with? The Jiao Yuan wanted to beat the child, but he was stopped by the Jiao Ma. If he really beat the child until he cried, they would quarrel again. However, the child was really disobedient. Therefore, the Jiao Pa had to warn him every few minutes. Other than the Jiao Pa, the child did not listen to anyone. He probably knew that no one else would dare to do anything to him. Zheng Tan suddenly missed Chuhua City. He really wished that time would pass faster. Finally, when they arrived at the amusement park, the naughty child's attention was diverted. He opened the car door and rushed out. Black Charcoal, do you want to come with us? The Jiao Pa asked after parking the car in the parking lot. Zheng Tan lay on the back seat and did not move. He lowered his ears and ignored Zhang Zian. Okay, you stay here. There is a cat litter box here. If you need to pee, you can use it. The Jiao Pa dragged out a simple cat litter box the size of a shoebox and put it on the ground. Then he left. There was water and some snacks in the car. Now, there was even a toilet. The Jiao Pa was not afraid that something would happen to Zheng Tan. The car window was closed, but not tightly. There was a small gap. There was no need to worry that someone would break into the car. After all, Zheng Tan was guarding the car. Zheng Tan looked out of the car window. The facilities in the amusement park were as Zheng Tan imagined. They were simple and monotonous. There was no need to think about roller coasters. However, there were similar rides that were enough to entertain the child. Zheng Tan was bored lying on the car seat. He could not sleep. He had not gone out for 2 days. This place was too strange. Zheng Tan was not familiar with the surroundings. Even if he wanted to go out for a walk, the Jiao Pa would not allow him to. Therefore, he simply did simple exercises like eating, and sleeping. Unable to sleep, Zheng Tan stood up and looked at the scenery outside the car window. There were no tall buildings around the amusement park. This small city was not developed. Compared to Chuhua City, it was far behind, not to mention Nanxing City, which was further south. This was the so-called urban area. The Jiao Pa's hometown was still in the countryside. According to the Jiao Pa's plan, he was going there to take a look in November. However, he did not know the exact date. However, for Zheng Tan, it was fine as long as he did not have to face those naughty children. While thinking, Zheng Tan saw a woman in her 40s pass by the car window with a child in her arms. Her footsteps were hurried. Zheng Tan noticed her not because of the person, but because of the child in her arms. Although the child was covered with a coat, because of the close distance, the woman looked back when she passed by, and the coat slipped down, allowing Zheng Tan to see the child's face. Wasn't this the little kid who followed him in the morning? Zheng Tan still remembered the clothes with the little bear pattern. However, the little kid seemed to be in a deep sleep with his eyes closed. After the woman looked back, she pulled the coat that slipped down and covered the child again. Then, she carried the child and walked forward. Not far ahead, there was a motorbike. A man wearing sunglasses rode on it and said something to the woman. Then, he raised his hand and lifted the coat that covered the little kid to take a look. Zheng Tan felt that this person was checking if the little kid had a little dick. Then, the man in sunglasses left with the woman. Zheng Tan did not know who the child was, nor did he know who the Jiao Pa's relatives were. Originally, he did not want to pay attention to it. Besides, even if he was a little suspicious, he could not go out now. However, in less than 5 minutes, people ran out of the amusement park. The few adults who were with the Jiao Pa earlier looked anxious and asked the people around them. Zheng Tan suddenly felt that something was wrong. After thinking about it, there were indeed many suspicious points. Zheng Tan had never encountered such a thing. In the past, he had only heard of people using food or toys to trick children. However, the little kid was not even 1 year old and could not even walk. How could the child be stolen just like that? Weren't there many people around watching? The child's grandmother was also with them. How could the child be stolen? 10 minutes later, the Jiao Pa and Jiao Ma came out. They were in a bad mood. The Jiao Yuan and little Pomelo were tactful and did not say anything. Now, each family had brought their own children. This time, there were 2 children who came to take the bus. However, these 2 children were much more obedient and quiet. One of them even seemed to have cried. The atmosphere in the car was completely different from when they came. The silence in the car was depressing. The Jiao Yuan opened his mouth a few times, but in the end he did not ask anything. The Jiao Pa sent the child back to his sister's house. Then he brought the Jiao Yuan and little Pomelo back to the house in town. The old man and old lady did not come back. After sending the Jiao Ma and the two children back, the Jiao Pa made a few calls and hurried out. Before the Jiao Pa left, Zheng Tan overheard the conversation between the Jiao Pa and the Jiao Ma in the room. Usually, human traffickers would cheat in A, hide in B, and sell in C. If they did not find the child as soon as possible, the traffickers would probably kidnap the child elsewhere. That would make it even harder to find the child. Therefore, the Jiao Pa and the others were seizing the time to look for the child. The child was the second child of the Jiao Pa's cousin. Their first child was a girl. It was not easy for them to have a son, and they usually treasured him. But this time, the child's father was busy with business and his mother was hospitalized. They did not have time to take care of the child. There was a nanny at home, but when they went out, the child's grandmother would take care of the child. Originally, the old woman just wanted to take the child out to play. She did not expect that something like this would happen. Now, everyone was going crazy. Those who had connections were looking for connections, and those who had channels were looking for channels. The Jiao Pa did not have much time. In this small city that had not yet developed, there were not many places with surveillance cameras. It was not easy to find the child. Zheng Tan remembered his experience of being kidnapped by a cat trafficker. He felt that the child was quite pitiful. The child did not know anything and was not like Zheng Tan who could save himself. Moreover, he was probably drugged. Just like those pet cats, no matter how expensive they were only worth a few dozen yuan if they were made into dishes. Zheng Tan had heard that kidnapped children were sold cheaply for a few thousand yuan. They were treated like treasures at home. In the hands of the traffickers, they were only worth that much. Chapter 108. That night, the Jiao Pa came back very late, and the two old people were also brought back by the Jiao Pa. Compared to their energetic state in the morning, the two old people were not in good spirits. If not for the fact that they were usually healthy, Zheng Tan suspected that they would have collapsed. After all, no family would have a good time if something like this happened. Also, based on the two old people's experience, they probably knew what would happen to the child if he fell into the hands of the human traffickers. That night, many people were destined to lose sleep. Not only did they lose sleep, but the adults were also discussing the matter. At 2 o'clock in the morning, there were still calls to the Jiao Pa to ask about the situation. Zheng Tan did not sleep. He listened to their conversation outside the room, as well as the conversation between the two old people. In the past, Zheng Tan did not know much about this. All he had experienced was cat trafficking. But after all, humans were different from cats. Since the child disappeared, the child's father had put down his work and contacted some people to publish a reward notice, which was widely posted in the surrounding provinces and cities. The child's mother had originally been prepared to be discharged, but she was agitated and stayed in the hospital. Child trafficking had been going on for a long time, and such incidents were increasing in the country every year. Some criminal gangs had also begun to organize, and the division of labor was clear. It was difficult to rely on the police in one place to investigate. Moreover, the information they had was limited. A group of people wanted to do it, but they were powerless. However, even if there were not many clues, they still had to look. They had contacted all the people they needed to contact. One more channel, one more hope. At 4 o'clock in the morning, there was another call. The Jiao Pa was afraid that it would be inconvenient if his phone ran out of battery, so he had left his phone and landline number with some people. In the quiet night, the landline phone rang, and people who had just calmed down continued to feel anxious. Many people said that no news was good news. At least it meant that the child was fine. This saying was somewhat self-deceiving. Just like in the current situation, people still hoped for some news. Hearing the phone ring, both the elderly and the children pricked up their ears. The Jiao Pa picked up the phone and said a few words. His face was pale. "What's wrong?" The old man put on his coat and walked over. His steps were a little hurried, and he almost tripped over the low stool on the ground. "Nothing, I'm going out for a bit." The Jiao Pa hung up the phone and answered. "Bullshit. Grandpa Jiao ignored the low stool he kicked and walked over. He pointed at the Jiao Pa and said, "I may be old, but I'm not stupid. I don't have Alzheimer's. Don't try to fool me." Grandpa Sheng's voice was a little loud. He was too agitated and couldn't control his emotions well. Jiao Ma and Grandma Sheng also came over. The Jiao Pa gestured to the Jiao Ma to take care of the children. The Jiao Ma hesitated, sighed, and turned to leave. "Old woman, you should rest too," Grandpa Jiao said to his grandmother. Grandpa Sheng always felt that when something happened and there was pressure, the man had to bear it. Even if what was about to happen was cruel, he had to face it. He couldn't let the woman bear it. Grandma Sheng also knew Grandpa Jiao's temper. Even if something really happened, they wouldn't say it now. With reddened eyes, the old lady wiped the corners of her eyes and shuffled her feet towards the bedroom. Zheng Tan stood at the door. Since no one was talking about him, he could eavesdrop. "Tell me, why did they call?" Grandpa Jiao sat down on the edge of the bed. He was no longer as imposing as before. "They found an abandoned baby on the bridge. They asked me to go take a look," Jiao Pa said. Grandpa Jiao's hand trembled. Even though he didn't say the whole thing, he understood what he was implying. Since the people on the bridge asked the Jiao Pa to go take a look, it couldn't be a baby girl. In this place, boys were still very precious. Abandoned babies were rare. Since it was abandoned on the bridge at such a time, the chances of the boy being alive was probably not high. Now, Grandpa Jiao's voice trembled. Although he was not his biological grandson, the relationship between relatives was not bad. During the holidays, Yao Hong and her husband would often send gifts to the old master. That little brat was also very popular with the old master. Now that something like this had happened, how could the old master not feel distressed? "I'm not sure yet. I'm just going to take a look. I didn't tell Hong Jie and the others about this." "Okay, I'll go with you." Grandpa Sheng didn't wait for Jiao Pa's objection and said, "My old face is still useful. After all, he was born and raised in this place." He knew some of the older generation. Sometimes, Grandpa Jiao's presence was more useful than Jiao Pa's words. Jiao Pa and Grandpa Jiao went out at around 4 o'clock. The rest of the family didn't feel sleepy. When Jiao Ma came back with breakfast, Jiao Yuan and little Pomelo were sitting at the dining table, yawning nonstop. Obviously, they didn't sleep well the whole night. Zheng Tan's mood was also affected. He didn't have a good appetite and didn't finish his breakfast, which was rare. Jiao Ma didn't say anything. She just sighed. Grandma Sheng wanted to go out for a walk after breakfast. She said it was too stuffy in the house. Mama Jiao was worried. She was afraid that the old lady's bad mood would affect her health. As she got older, she had a lot of diseases such as high blood pressure and heart disease. She had to pay more attention to them. Now, the old lady's condition was obviously much worse. If she accidentally fell outside, it would be a big problem. However, Jiao Ma had to take care of the 2 children at home. She couldn't leave. After thinking for a while, Jiao Ma's eyes finally landed on Zheng Tan, who was wandering around the gate. "Black charcoal, do you want to go out?" Jiao Ma asked. Zheng Tan wagged his tail and jumped up to open the door. He walked to the door and turned to look at Jiao Ma. His intention was clear. "Oh, you really know how to open the door." Grandma Sheng's attention was diverted. "Yeah, I always open the door at home." "I don't know how to do it," Jiao Ma said. Grandma Sheng thought that Zhang Zian opened the door by pulling the lock from the inside. She didn't think that Zhang Zian could open the door with a key. Besides, there weren't many cats that knew how to open the door. However, there was a cat that knew how to open the door. Therefore, Grandma Sheng didn't think that there was anything strange about Zheng Tan. "Mom, let Black Charcoal go out with you. Let him relax." When he was in Chuhua, he often went to the school. "This time, he must be bored out of his mind," Jiao Ma said. Grandma Sheng nodded at Jiao Ma's words. "He won't run around, right? Do you want me to keep him on a leash?" "No, Black Charcoal is very obedient," Jiao Ma quickly said. She didn't have the heart to put a leash on her cat. Zheng Tan listened to Jiao Ma and Grandma Sheng. He pretended to be very obedient. He really did want to go out and get some fresh air. The atmosphere tonight was too heavy. It was a bit depressing and uncomfortable. It was better to go out for a walk. Seeing Grandma Xing go out, Zheng Tan followed her. He walked beside Grandma Xing. He didn't run far, and he maintained the same speed as Grandma Xing. Jiao Ma stood at the door and watched for a while. When Grandma Xing and Zheng Tan were far away, she went back into the house and closed the door. Zheng Tan walked with Grandma Xing while paying attention to the scenery around him. He had been here for 2 days, but he hadn't properly observed the terrain here. They were surrounded by private residential areas. After walking for more than 100 meters, they came out of the alley. Outside was the street. It was more lively there. Although this area wasn't the center of the city, there were signs that a new district was going to be built. The old factories had been knocked down and were preparing to build commercial buildings. Some areas had been fenced off. When Grandma Xing walked out of the alley, she suddenly remembered that a cat was following her. She looked to the side and saw that her son's black cat was following her closely. It didn't go anywhere else. It was indifferent when some dogs barked at it. Grandma Xing was satisfied. No wonder her son spoiled the cat so much. It was really obedient. Grandma Xing planned to walk along the street for a while after leaving the alley. Zheng Tan didn't care. He wouldn't get lost if he followed Grandma Xing. As they walked, they passed by a small store. Grandma Xing went to buy some fruit candies. She wanted to bring them back for Jiao Yuan and the others. "Are you taking your cat out for a walk?" The shop owner looked curiously at the black cat standing by the old lady's feet. Grandma Xing forced a smile. "Yes, it's my son's cat. He's accompanying me for a walk." The small store owner didn't say much. He weighed the candies and gave Grandma Xing the change. Grandma Xing took the fruit candies and walked back with Zheng Tan. Zheng Tan was about to follow when he suddenly saw a familiar figure. A small 3-wheeled motorcycle slowly drove down the street and stopped by the side of the road. The driver got out and walked to the small store to buy cigarettes. Passenger tricycles like this could be seen in many places in the city. They were much cheaper than taxis. Many people would choose to ride them to save money. Zheng Tan looked at the driver. He wasn't wearing sunglasses, and his clothes were different. However, Zheng Tan felt that this person was very similar to the motorcyclist from yesterday. "Black charcoal, let's go back." Grandma Xing saw that the cat stopped and didn't follow, so she called out to it. Zheng Tan looked back at Grandma Xing and continued to stare at the 3-wheeled motorcycle driver who was walking back after buying cigarettes. His gaze landed on the driver's gloves. They were black leather gloves, similar to the motorcyclist from yesterday. When the motorcyclist got on the 3-wheeled motorcycle and shrugged, Zheng Tan was even more certain. The motorcyclist from yesterday also shrugged before he started driving. It was probably a personal habit. Anyway, Zheng Tan didn't see Celestine shrugging when he was riding a motorcycle. Grandma Xing saw that Zheng Tan didn't pay attention to her. She called out again, but the cat ran away directly. "Black charcoal. Come back quickly." Grandma Xing was anxious. She knew that her son's family treasured this cat. If they lost it, the 2 children would definitely cry when they got back. Didn't they say that cats don't run around? What was going on now? Unfortunately, Grandma Xing's legs weren't strong enough. After running for 2 steps, she stopped to catch her breath. She was still carrying a bag of things in her hand. The shop owner sat in the shop and watched the black cat run away without caring about Grandma Xing's calls. He shook his head and whispered, "It's better to bring the dog out for a walk. The cat won't follow you obediently." Zheng Tan kept running forward. The 3-wheeled motorcycle had already started moving. However, due to the construction in front, there were some small stones on the road. The 3-wheeled motorcycle didn't go very fast. When the motorcycle turned a corner, Zheng Tan jumped in through the open window. The driver only felt the motorcycle shake a little. He looked in the rearview mirror and didn't find anything unusual. He attributed the cause to the stones on the road. He cursed, F***ck the road, and continued to drive the 3-wheeled motorcycle away. Because there were many construction sites there, the surrounding area was surrounded. It also obstructed some people's view. Plus, the 3-wheeled motorcycle just happened to turn a corner, so no one saw Zheng Tan jump into the 3-wheeled motorcycle. Zheng Tan was afraid that other passengers would come on the motorcycle. If that happened, even if he hid under the seat, the passengers would be able to see him as long as they looked down. Fortunately, the driver didn't seem to have any intention of picking up passengers. He just kept driving. Zheng Tan looked out from the gap in the curtain. The road behind was a little off. The surroundings seemed to have been planned. There were many old buildings with the word demolished painted on them, but no construction had started. After driving for a while, Zheng Tan suddenly thought, what if I got the wrong person?